The first call came in a little after 1 o'clock in the morning. I remember because I was staring at the clock above dispatch when the radio cracked alive beside me. Unit 12, possible stranded female, on County Road 14 near the flood bridge. The dispatcher's voice sounded tired, flat, like she'd already repeated herself too many times tonight. Outside the station windows, rain hammered the parking lot hard enough to blur the streetlights. It had been raining for almost 16 hours straight. Half the county was underwater already. I rubbed my eyes and grabbed the radio mic. Copy that. Any vehicle? A few seconds passed. Then static. Then her voice again. Caller says female is standing in the road barefoot. Barefoot. That was the first thing that bothered me. Not stranded in a car. Not asking for help. Just standing there. I leaned back in my chair for a second and listened to the rain hitting the roof of the cruiser outside. County Road 14 set almost 20 miles north of town. Nothing out there except flooded fields, power lines, and old farmland nobody used anymore. Any caller ID? I asked. No, Sheriff. Call dropped twice. I sighed and stood up slowly. My knees ached from sitting too long. All right, I'm headed out. The drive north felt longer than usual. The rain got worse once I left town. Wipers barely kept up. Water rolled across the pavement in silver sheets, making the road look alive under the headlights. Dispatch stayed quiet most of the drive. That should have felt peaceful. Instead, it made me uneasy. Normally on nights like this, the radio never shut up. Car accidents, downed trees, drunk drivers sliding into ditches. But after that call came in, everything went dead. No chatter, no county traffic, just static. About 10 miles out, I passed the old Miller gas station sitting dark beside the highway. Its sign buzzed weakly in the storm. For a second, I thought I saw someone standing beside the pumps. I slowed instinctively, but another flash of lightning showed nothing there. Just rain. I kept driving. The closer I got to the flood bridge, the worse the water became. The river had overflowed into the fields on both sides of the road. Muddy water stretched through the darkness like a black ocean. Then my headlights caught something ahead. A person, standing motionless near the bridge railing. I eased off the gas immediately. The woman stood ankle-deep in water flowing across the pavement. White nightgown soaked against her skin. Long dark hair hanging over her face. No shoes. No jacket. No car anywhere nearby. My headlights washed over her, but she didn't move, didn't wave, didn't react at all. I stopped the cruiser about 20 feet away and reached for the spotlight. The second the beam hit her face, dispatch crackled again. Unit 12 status check. The sudden noise made me jump a little. I grabbed the mic. Yeah, I found her. But while I was speaking, the woman slowly turned her head toward the river beside the bridge. Not toward me, toward the water, like she heard something out there. I stepped out into the rain. Cold wind hit me instantly. Water soaked through my uniform pants before I even shut the cruiser door. Ma'am! I called. No response. The river roared underneath the bridge, so loudly it almost swallowed my voice. I walked closer carefully. Ma'am, are you hurt? Still nothing. She just stood there staring into the darkness below. Then I noticed something strange. Her feet. The skin looked pale gray beneath the water. Not pale from cold. Gray, like wet paper. I stopped walking. Something deep in my stomach tightened suddenly. Ma'am! Very slowly, she pointed toward the river. I turned instinctively toward the floodwater below the bridge. At first I didn't see anything. Then lightning flashed overhead. And for half a second, I saw another person standing down there in the rushing water under the bridge. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. The next flash came. Nothing there. Just violent black water. I looked back toward the woman immediately. She somebody with you? No answer. Rain poured down her face, but she never blinked. Then dispatch came through again. Only this time the voice sounded strange. Distorted. Like someone speaking through a broken speaker underwater. Unit 12 returned to vehicle. Static swallowed the rest. I lifted the radio closer. Dispatch, repeat. Nothing. Then a different voice answered. A woman's voice. Quiet. Weak. Please? I froze completely. The radio hissed softly in my hand. He's under the bridge. My chest went cold. Dispatch. No response. Just static again. I looked back toward the woman near the railing. She was gone. I swear to God, she vanished in maybe 2 seconds. No footsteps. No splashing water. Nothing. 1 second she stood there. The next, empty road. I spun around immediately, shining my flashlight through the rain. Ma'am. Only the river answered. For a moment, I honestly considered getting back in the cruiser and driving away. Not because of ghosts or anything stupid like that. Because nothing about the situation made sense anymore. No vehicle. No footprints. No sign anyone had even walked out there except her. And now she was gone. I walked toward the bridge railing slowly and aimed my flashlight down into the floodwater below. The beam bounced off rushing brown water and broken tree branches. Then something pale drifted near one of the support columns. A hand. I felt my stomach drop instantly. Jesus Christ. I scrambled down the muddy embankment toward the river, nearly slipping twice. By the time I reached the edge, the shape had vanished beneath the current. Dispatch. I shouted into the radio. Possible body under the North Bridge support. I need fire rescue out here now. Static answered me again. Then silence. No confirmation. No response. The rain suddenly felt much colder. I checked the radio twice. Still connected. Still powered on. But the county frequency had gone completely dead. That was when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Splashing through shallow water. I turned around fast enough to hurt my neck. Nobody there. Only darkness. My flashlight beam shook slightly in my hand now. The footsteps stopped too. I listened carefully. Rain. River. Wind. Then another sound. Breathing. Close. Way too close. I swung the flashlight toward the underside of the bridge. At first, all I saw were concrete supports dripping with rainwater. Then the beam moved farther left and stopped. Someone stood beneath the bridge. Tall, completely still, half hidden behind the support column. I couldn't see the face. Only dark, wet hair hanging forward. The same white nightgown. My body locked up immediately. The flashlight trembled in my grip. The woman tilted her head slowly sideways. Not normal. Too far sideways. Then the radio on my shoulder crackled one last time. But this time it wasn't dispatch. It was my own voice. Calm. Clear. This is Unit 12. A pause. Then, she's still here. I stopped breathing. The voice continued through the speaker. But there's 2 of them now. The transmission cut out completely. And somewhere beneath the bridge, I heard another set of footsteps moving through the water behind me. I didn't turn around immediately. That's the part that still bothers me. Those footsteps stopped behind me under the bridge. And for maybe 3 full seconds, I just stood there staring at the woman near the support column. Rainwater dripped from the concrete above her. Her hair covered most of her face, but I could still see her mouth. She was smiling, not wide, not crazy looking, just enough to make my skin tighten across the back of my neck. Then lightning flashed over the river, and she disappeared again. The space beside the support column went empty so fast my brain almost refused to process it. I spun around instantly, flashlight beam cutting wildly through the rain behind me. Nothing there. No footsteps. No person. Just muddy water flowing around dead, branches near the riverbank. But something had definitely moved behind me. I knew it. You spend enough years working nights in a county like ours, you learn the difference between paranoia and instinct. And every instinct I had was screaming at me to get away from that bridge. Fast. I climbed back up the embankment harder than I should have at my age, slipping twice in the mud before reaching the road again. The cruiser still sat where I left it, headlights glowing through heavy rain. For one brief second, seeing it made me feel stupid. Like maybe exhaustion was finally catching up to me. Maybe the storm was getting inside my head. Maybe I'd spent too many years alone on midnight shifts, listening to strange calls in empty places. I stood there breathing hard, rain soaking through my jacket. Then I noticed the passenger door of my cruiser was open. I froze. I knew for a fact I left it closed. The dome light glowed weakly inside the cabin. I walked toward it slowly. Every step felt wrong, too quiet beneath the storm. When I reached the door, I looked inside carefully. Nothing appeared stolen. Shotgun still mounted. Laptop still running. Coffee cup still sitting in the holder. But the radio speaker hissed softly now. Static, low and steady. Then a woman's voice whispered through it. Still under the bridge. I jerked back so hard I nearly lost my footing. The transmission cut out immediately after. Silence returned. I grabbed the mic fast. Dispatch, respond. Nothing. Dispatch, do you copy? More static. Then finally, Unit 12, go ahead. Normal voice. Normal signal. I almost felt relief. Yeah, I said quickly. You lose contact a minute ago. A pause. No, Sheriff. Rain hammered the roof of the cruiser. I stared out toward the bridge again. You didn't transmit anything about somebody under the bridge? Another pause. Then, negative. Something cold moved slowly through my chest. I looked down at the muddy road beside the cruiser. That's when I saw the footprints. Bare footprints. Leading across the pavement. At first, I thought they belonged to the woman. But then I noticed something strange. They didn't come from the bridge. They started in the middle of the road. I crouched slowly despite the rain. The prints were small. Narrow feet. Definitely female. Water filled them almost instantly as rain poured down. But I could still see enough. No heel marks approaching. No footprints leading toward them. Just prints appearing suddenly in the center of the highway. Then continuing north. Like somebody had simply stepped into existence right there on the pavement. I stood up slowly. My stomach felt heavy now. Dispatch. I said quietly into the mic, you got any missing persons from the area recently? Negative. Why? I kept staring at the prints. No reason. I should have left. That would have been the smart thing. Wait for backup. Wait until daylight. But the footprints bothered me worse than the woman did. Because footprints are physical. Real. You can explain strange lights. You can explain exhaustion. But mud doesn't lie. I grabbed my flashlight and followed them north along the road. The rain had eased slightly now. Just enough for fog to begin forming above the flooded fields. Everything looked gray. Soft. Like the whole world was underwater already. The footprints continued for almost half a mile. Always straight. Always barefoot. And the farther I followed them, the stranger they became. At first they looked normal. Then gradually, they started sinking deeper into the mud. Like whoever made them was getting heavier. With every step. By the time I reached the old cattle gate near the Hanson property, the prints looked almost impossible. Some were nearly 3 inches deep. I stopped walking. No woman that small should leave tracks like that. I swept the flashlight across the empty fields. Dead cornstalks swayed in floodwater. Power lines hummed overhead. No houses nearby. No vehicles. Nothing alive except the sound of insects and distant thunder. Then the radio crackled again. But this time dispatch sounded nervous. Sheriff, where exactly are you? I frowned. North of the bridge. Why? A pause. We just got another call. My grip tightened on the flashlight. From who? They didn't say. Static burst loudly through the speaker. Then dispatch continued. They said there's a sheriff walking alone on County 14. I stopped breathing. Rain tapped softly against my hat brim. And he needs to leave before she notices him. The radio went silent. For several seconds, I couldn't move. I slowly turned and scanned the dark fields again. Something about hearing myself described by a stranger out there, it changed the whole feeling of the night. I suddenly felt visible, watched, like eyes had been following me long before I arrived. Dispatch, I said carefully. Traced the call. No number came through. Of course not. I kept following the footprints anyway. I don't fully know why. Part of me needed to prove this was real. Another part wanted answers. And another part, the honest part, already knew something was wrong with that road. The prints eventually left the pavement near a collapsed fence line and headed toward the flooded fields. The mud became thick there, heavy enough to suck at my boots. I almost turned back twice. Then I noticed something caught on the broken fence wire. Fabric. White fabric. I stepped closer and carefully pulled it free. A piece of silk cloth from a nightgown. Fresh tear. Still wet and cold. I stared at it silently while wind moved through the field grass. Then lightning flashed somewhere far behind me, and for 1 second, I saw someone standing near the road beside my cruiser. My heart lurched. The figure looked tall and thin in the rain. Watching me, I raised the flashlight fast. Empty road. No one there. But my cruiser headlights were off now. I knew I hadn't turned them off. The road beyond it had disappeared into darkness. That finally broke whatever stubbornness I had left. I started back immediately. Fast. The field mud grabbed at my boots while rain picked up again overhead. By the time I reached the road, my breathing had gone shallow. The cruiser sat dark and silent. Engine off. Driver door open. I know for a fact the engine had been running. I approached slowly with my hand resting near my holster. Hello? No response. Only the river roaring somewhere behind the trees. Then I saw more footprints. These were different, larger, barefoot too, and deeper than the others. They circled my cruiser slowly. One full lap around it. Then another, like somebody had walked around the vehicle over and over in the rain. I counted at least 4 circles before the tracks suddenly stopped near the driver door. Not faded, not washed away. Stopped, as if whoever made them had simply vanished beside my seat. The inside of the cruiser smelled strange now. River water, rotting leaves, and something else underneath. Something old. I reached for the radio again with shaking fingers. Before I could speak, dispatch came through first. But the voice wasn't my dispatcher anymore. It was an older woman, weak, crying softly. You left me here. My blood went cold. The transmission crackled hard. Then another voice came through beneath hers. A man this time. Low, almost impossible to hear. She walks the road when the river rises. I backed away from the cruiser. Slowly. Rain poured harder again. The radio hissed one last time. Then I heard my dispatcher screaming somewhere through the static. Sheriff, get away from the water now. The transmission cut off violently, and from somewhere out in the flooded field beside the road, I heard barefoot footsteps running toward me through the dark. I ran toward the cruiser before I even realized I'd made the decision. Those footsteps crashing to the flooded field behind me sounded wrong. Too fast. Too heavy. Water splashed violently in the darkness beside the road while I grabbed the driver door and threw myself inside. The second I slammed the door shut, the sound stopped. Just stopped completely. Like whoever had been running at me disappeared the moment I got inside the vehicle. I locked the doors immediately. My breathing sounded loud in the cabin. Outside, rain crawled down the windows in thick streams, distorting the empty road beyond the headlights. No figure, no movement, nothing. But I knew something had been out there. I started the engine with shaking hands. The cruiser struggled for a second before roaring back to life. That should have made me feel safer. Instead, I noticed the gas gauge had dropped nearly to empty. An hour earlier it had been almost full. I stared at it in silence. That made no sense. Then the radio exploded with static. So, loudly, I nearly dropped the mic. Voices bled through it. Multiple voices at once. Men, women, dispatch chatter. Pieces of old conversations overlapping each other. Vehicle submerged. Search teams arriving. Female still missing. Don't go near the riv. The transmission snapped off hard. Silence returned. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I finally made the choice to leave County Road 14. Whatever was happening out there could wait until daylight. I shifted into drive and turned the cruiser south toward town. But after maybe 30 seconds, I realized something strange. The road wasn't changing. The same broken fence line stayed beside me. Same dead tree. Same leaning mailbox. I frowned and slowed down. Impossible. I looked in the rearview mirror. The flood bridge still sat behind me through the rain. Way too close. I'd been driving for almost a minute. There should have been at least half a mile between us. A cold pressure settled slowly into my chest. I pressed harder on the gas. The cruiser accelerated. Rain hammered the windshield. Telephone poles passed faster now. But when lightning flashed overhead, the bridge was still there behind me. Same distance. Watching. I felt something close to panic for the first time that night. "Dispatch!" I said into the radio quickly. "You still copy?" Static hissed. Then my dispatcher answered. But her voice sounded strained now. Tense. "Sheriff, where are you?" "Heading south." "No," she said immediately. A pause. "You're not." I looked into the mirror again. The bridge remained behind me, unmoving, like the road itself had stopped existing beyond it. My throat suddenly felt dry. "What do you mean I'm not?" Dispatch didn't answer right away. I could hear typing in the background, then papers shuffling. Then, "Sheriff, I need you to tell me the name you heard tonight." My stomach tightened instantly. "What?" "The woman." Rain pounded harder outside. "She say her name?" I stayed quiet for a second. Then I realized something strange. Nobody had actually told me her name. Not once. But somehow, I already knew it. The thought slipped into my head. So naturally it scared me. "Mara," I said softly. The radio went dead silent. No static. Nothing. Then very slowly, my dispatcher whispered, "Oh, God." I gripped the wheel tighter. "What?" Her breathing sounded shaky now. "I need you to listen carefully. Do not go back to the bridge." Lightning flashed again. For one terrible second, I saw a woman standing in the middle of the road ahead of me, barefoot, hair soaked against her face. I slammed the brakes instinctively. The cruiser skidded sideways across wet pavement before stopping hard. When the headlights settled, the road was empty again. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Dispatch!" I breathed. "Who is Mara?" The radio crackled softly. Then I heard another voice enter the transmission. Older, male, not live, like an old recording. Missing female, age 23. Last seen near County Road 14 during severe flooding. I froze. The voice continued beneath static. Subject identified as Mara Vane. Another click, another recording. Different dispatcher this time. Search teams unable to locate vehicle. Then another. Family reports hearing radioactivity from her phone after disappearance. My entire body went cold. The recordings kept coming one after another like dispatch was cycling through old archives by itself. Dates followed each transmission. Different years. Same road. Same woman. Always during floods. Always at night. I listened in stunned silence while rain battered the cruiser roof. Caller reported barefoot female. Standing near bridge. Deputy unable to confirm visual. Unit reports hearing female voice through patrol radio. My breathing slowed. Not from calm. From disbelief. The recording sounded authentic. Real officers. Real panic. Some voices calm. Others terrified. One deputy sounded close to tears. "She keeps asking where her car went." The transmission warped violently. Then another recording began. This one hit harder than the others because the voice sounded young. Maybe early 20s. Male deputy. Nervous. "I found footprints in the road, but they don't lead anywhere." I closed my eyes briefly. Same footprints. Same bridge. Same storm. Then the recording continued. "I think she's still here with me." Static swallowed the rest. The cruiser suddenly flickered. Dashboard lights dimmed for half a second, then came back. Outside, fog had started drifting across the road. Thick now, almost glowing in the headlights. The bridge behind me disappeared inside it. For the first time all night, I couldn't see it anymore. That should have comforted me. Instead, it made things worse, because now I didn't know where it was. Dispatch finally returned live again. "Sheriff." I grabbed the mic immediately. "Yeah, you need to come back to town." "I've been trying." "No." Her voice shook slightly. "I mean mentally." That sentence sat inside me wrong. I looked down at my hands. They were trembling harder now. "Tell me what happened to Mara." A long silence followed. Then my dispatcher sighed softly. "She drowned in 93. Lightning flashed far away inside the fog. She drove off the bridge during a flood. Car was never recovered." I stared ahead quietly. What about the calls? Another pause. That's the problem. The radio crackled softly again. People kept reporting her after she died. I swallowed slowly. How many people? No answer. Then finally, too many. A new sound drifted through the static suddenly. Soft humming. A woman humming quietly to herself. My skin prickled immediately. Dispatch heard it too. Sheriff, do you hear that? I nodded before realizing she couldn't see me. Yeah. The humming grew clearer, closer, then words slowly formed beneath it, not through the radio. Outside, I looked toward the passenger window carefully. A figure stood beside the cruiser, so close her wet hair touched the glass. The woman from the bridge, Mara. Water dripped from her nightgown onto the pavement, while she stared inside at me with hollow gray eyes. Her lips moved slowly. At first I couldn't understand what she was saying. Then I realized she kept repeating the same sentence, over and over. He's still in the water. The radio erupted with screaming static. Dispatch yelled something I couldn't understand. But I couldn't stop staring at Mara, because behind her, through the fog near the bridge, I saw headlights glowing underwater beneath the river surface. The headlights under the river moved. That was the part that finally broke something inside me. Not flickering reflections, not lightning. Actual headlights shifting slowly beneath the black floodwater under the bridge, like a car was still down there, still running. Mara stood beside my passenger window, watching me quietly while rain streamed down her face. He's still in the water, she whispered again. Then every light around me died at once. The cruiser dashboard shut off. Headlights vanished. The bridge lights disappeared. Even the distant power lines across the fields went dark. The entire county dropped into blackness. For half a second, I honestly thought I'd gone blind. Then thunder rolled overhead, and I realized the storm had knocked out the grid. Only rain remained. Rain and darkness. The sudden silence inside the cruiser felt wrong. Heavy, like the storm itself was holding its breath. I turned slowly toward the passenger window again. Mara was gone. My pulse slammed in my ears. I grabbed the flashlight from the console and clicked it on immediately. Weak yellow light filled the cabin. Empty seat. Fogged windows. Nothing outside except rain. But the river headlights still glowed faintly through the darkness ahead, deep beneath the water. Waiting. The radio crackled softly beside me. Not powered. Not possible. The cruiser battery was dead. Still, the speaker hissed. Then came whispering. So quiet I almost missed it. Please? I stared at the radio. Help him. The voice sounded wet, not emotional. Wet, like words bubbling through water. I swallowed hard. Every instinct told me not to answer, but I still reached the mic. Who is this? Static crackled softly. Then, under the bridge, the whisper faded again. I looked toward the river. The headlights beneath the water remained perfectly still now. I don't know why I got out of the cruiser. I asked myself that all the time. Maybe because I was a sheriff for 22 years. Maybe because some part of me still believed there was a real victim down there. Or maybe the road had already gotten inside my head long before I realized it. The rain hit colder now. Wind pushed hard across the flooded fields while I stepped carefully toward the bridge with the flashlight shaking in my hand. Everything looked unreal in the dark. The storm clouds blocked the moon completely. Only occasional lightning gave shape to the world. The river sounded louder than before, violent, hungry. As I reached the bridge railing, the whispering returned, not from the radio this time. From below me, I froze instantly. Sheriff, the voice drifted upward through the stormwater. Weak, male, please. I aimed the flashlight over the railing. The beam barely reached the water beneath the bridge. Flood current slammed against the support columns below. Broken branches spun through the river like bodies. Then lightning flashed overhead. And for one horrible second, I saw a car submerge beneath the surface, resting upside down against the bridge supports. Headlights glowing underwater. A pale face pressed against the inside of the driver window. The darkness returned immediately after. My breath caught in my throat. I stepped backward instinctively. Then the whisper came again, closer this time. He's awake. I looked down sharply. The face was gone. Only black water remained. But something had changed. The river suddenly smelled stronger. Mud, rot, gasoline. I covered my mouth instinctively. Then my flashlight flickered once, twice, and illuminated fresh footprints across the bridge pavement. Barefoot, wet, leading toward me. My heart started hammering again. The prints hadn't been there a second earlier. I knew that. I backed away slowly while shining the beam along them. They stopped only a few feet from where I stood, like somebody had been directly beside me in the dark. Thunder rolled overhead again. Then came another sound, a car door slamming somewhere beneath the bridge. I nearly dropped the flashlight. The river surged violently below. Metal groaned under the bridge supports. Then a man started screaming underwater. Not drowning screams, not panic, agony, pure agony. I stumbled backward against the cruiser hood. The sound echoed through the floodwater beneath the bridge, like somebody trapped inside a sinking vehicle. Then it stopped suddenly. The silence afterward felt worse. I stood there breathing hard, staring into the darkness, and that's when I realized something else. The screaming voice had sounded familiar, very familiar. I slowly looked toward the dead radio inside my cruiser, then toward the river again, and a terrible thought entered my mind. I pulled my phone out immediately. No signal, of course, but the screen still showed the date. October 17th. I frowned. That wasn't possible. I had worked October 18th yesterday. I remembered it clearly. The diner near Main Street. Paperwork at the station. Talking to Deputy Collins about hunting season. I checked again. Still the 17th. Wind roared across the bridge. My stomach turned cold. The radio whispered again behind me. You answer the call? I spun around toward the cruiser. The speaker crackled softly in the darkness. Same as the others? A knot tightened slowly in my chest. Others. How many others? I suddenly remembered the old recordings from dispatch. Deputies hearing voices, finding footprints, getting trapped near the bridge during floods. And one detail hit me harder than everything else. None of those recordings ever mentioned officers returning home. Lightning flashed again. This time I saw multiple figures standing along the flooded riverbank below. Motionless people, men and women, some wearing old sheriff uniforms, some in civilian clothes, all staring upward toward me. The light vanished. Darkness swallowed them instantly. I couldn't breathe for a second. The whispering beneath the bridge grew louder now. Dozens of voices overlapping softly. Not angry, not threatening, just repeating the same thing over and over. Come down. Rain poured harder. The river surged higher against the supports. And somewhere deep beneath the bridge, a car horn suddenly began blaring underwater. Long, continuous. The sound echoed to the floodplain like an animal crying in pain. Then another horn joined it. Then another. My pulse nearly broke loose in my chest. There wasn't just one car down there. There were multiple. The river beneath the bridge held more than Mara. The flashlight trembled violently in my grip now. I backed toward the cruiser again. But the closer I got to it, the more wrong it looked. Water dripped steadily from underneath the doors. The windows fogged from the inside. And sitting behind the steering wheel was someone else. A silhouette, motionless. My feet stopped moving. The figure inside slowly turned its head toward me. Lightning flashed. I saw my own face staring back through the windshield. Pale, drenched, eyes half open. Exactly how I looked right now. The lightning vanished. Darkness returned. I stumbled backward in shock. No! The thing inside the cruiser lifted the radio mic slowly. Then my own voice crackled through the dead speaker. This is Unit 12. Static hissed softly. I found the woman. My blood ran cold. The voice continued calmly. But the river won't let us leave. I backed away from the cruiser, completely now. My boots slipped near the bridge edge. Below me, the underwater headlights suddenly brightened. One by one, yellow beams glowing through black floodwater beneath the bridge supports. I counted at least 6 vehicles, maybe more, and inside every set of headlights, I could see movement, shapes shifting behind glass. hands pressing against windows. The whispering voices below rose louder together, not begging anymore, welcoming. Then Mara appeared beside me again, so suddenly and silently that I didn't even react at first. She stood inches away, staring toward the river. Rain passed through strands of her dark hair. "He thought he could save me," she said softly. Her voice sounded almost normal now. Human. I forced myself to speak. "Who?" She slowly turned toward me, and for the first time, I saw the bruise around her throat, dark gray beneath pale skin. "Not drowning. Not an accident. He pushed the car in," she whispered. My chest tightened instantly. A memory surfaced. Not mine. A man screaming underwater. The smell of whiskey. A steering wheel jerking sideways. Mara's terrified voice crying in the dark. The radio static exploded again. And suddenly I understood something horrible. The calls never came from the dead. They came from the moment they died. Repeating, over and over during every flood. Like the river trapped the last seconds of terror beneath the bridge. Mara looked back toward the water. "He's still down there," she whispered. Then she pointed beneath the bridge. The flashlight beam shook as I aimed it downward one last time. And deep below the surface, inside the upside-down car, I saw a man's corpse staring directly up at me with open eyes, wearing an old sheriff's uniform. The first transmission came through at 2:13 in the morning. Weak, broken, almost buried under static. At first, I thought it was just storm interference bouncing to the county channels again. That happens sometimes out near Black Pine Forest. Old mountains. Too many trees. Bad reception. But then the voice said my name. Deputy Weller. The radio hissed loudly after that. I glanced down at the console while driving. The signal light flickered weakly beside Channel 2. "Deputy Weller, you copy?" Male voice. Older. Breathing hard. I picked up the mic slowly. "This is Deputy Weller." "Go ahead." Nothing answered. Only static. I waited maybe 10 seconds before setting the mic back down. The road curved deeper into the state forest ahead of me, swallowed by endless pine trees. My headlights barely cut through the fog, drifting between the trunks. I hated that road at night. Everybody did. No houses, no traffic, just miles of wet forest and old logging trails disappearing into darkness. Dispatch had sent me out there for a simple gate check near the North Service roads. Should have taken 20 minutes. Instead, I kept hearing that voice in my head. Deputy Weller. Not officer. Not unit number. My actual name. That bothered me more than it should have. Rain tapped softly against the cruiser windshield while I drove deeper into the trees. Then the radio cracked alive again. Louder this time. "Don't let them near the tower." I grabbed the mic immediately. "Who is this?" Static screamed through the speaker hard enough to make me pull it away from my ear. Then silence returned. I slowed the cruiser near an old ranger sign half buried in weeds. "Black Pine Fire Access. Road closed." I frowned. The transmission had sounded close. Too close. Like whoever spoke was somewhere nearby inside the forest. I checked the GPS. No active units anywhere near me. No ranger patrols either. The fire tower district had been abandoned since the late 90s after budget cuts shut everything down. At least that's what I remembered. I reached for the radio again. "Dispatch, you got anybody working North Sector tonight?" A burst of static answered first. Then dispatch came through. "Negative, Weller." "Why?" "I'm getting radio bleed." "What kind?" I looked out toward the dark trees. "Sounds local." Dispatch paused. Then, "Probably weather bounce. Storm fronts moving over mountains." "Maybe, but weather bounce didn't usually know your name." I kept driving. The farther north I went, the worse the fog became. It rolled low across the road like smoke. Pine branches scraped the cruiser roof whenever the road narrowed. The forest felt too still tonight. No insects, no wind, nothing except the engine and distant thunder somewhere above the trees. Then I saw the light, way up ahead through the forest, high above the tree line, white, blinking slowly. I eased off the gas immediately. The fire tower. I hadn't seen lights up there in years. The old tower stood somewhere deep inside black pine forest on a ridge overlooking the county. Kids used to sneak up there, sometimes until the stairs became unsafe. After that, the county sealed the access road, but the light was definitely on. Blink, darkness. Blink, darkness again. I stared at it through the windshield. Then the radio whispered softly beside me. He's still up here. Cold prickle across my arms. I grabbed the mic. Identify yourself. The transmission crackled violently. Then a new voice answered. Female this time. Weak. Crying. Please send somebody. My stomach tightened immediately. Ma'am, what's your location? Static swallowed her voice. Then one sentence pushed through clearly. Stairs are moving. The signal died again. I sat frozen behind the wheel. Part of me wanted to turn around right there. Call state police. Call forest services. Anything except go deeper into those woods alone. But another part of me knew something important. That woman sounded real. Terrified. And if somebody actually got trapped up near that tower during the storm, waiting could kill them. I turned onto the old access road. Mud splashed beneath the tires immediately. Branches crowded both sides of the narrow trail. The deeper I drove, the darker the forest became. My headlights caught broken signs buried in weeds. Fall risk, unsafe structure. Road closed by county order. The last sign had bullet holes through it. That felt strangely recent. Then the radio burst alive again, so suddenly I jumped. They're in the trees. Heavy breathing followed. Fast breathing. Male voice again. Don't shine your lights at them. The transmission cut hard. I stopped the cruiser. Rain tapped steadily against the roof. My eyes moved slowly across the forest outside. Tall pine trunks stood motionless in the fog. Nothing there. But after hearing that transmission, the woods suddenly felt crowded. Like something was standing just beyond the headlights, waiting for me to notice it. I told myself I was tired. That was all. 3 straight night shifts. Too much coffee. Too little sleep. The brain does strange things when you're exhausted in the middle of nowhere. I kept driving uphill. Eventually the trees opened enough for me to finally see the tower clearly. It rose above the forest like a black skeleton against the storm clouds. Tall, rusting, crooked slightly to one side, and near the top, the light blinked again. Slow, mechanical, like someone operating an old lantern. I parked near the base of the hill and stepped out into the cold air. The smell hit me first. Wet pine needles, mud, and something metallic underneath, almost like old blood. I shined my flashlight toward the tower stairs. Rust covered nearly every inch of the structure. The bottom gate hung open slightly, swinging softly in the wind. Clang, clang, clang. I approached carefully. The flashlight beam drifted across the old warning sign bolted beside the entrance. County property. Entry prohibited. Something had scratched through the middle of the sign deeply enough to bend the metal. Long marks, like claws. I stared at them for a second too long. Then the radio whispered again behind me. He fell? I turned toward the cruiser. The speaker hissed softly through the open driver window. But he kept talking after. A chill moved slowly down my back. I stepped closer to the tower stairs. That's when I noticed the footprints. Fresh mud, large boots, leading upward. Not old, not washed out. Fresh. Somebody had definitely climbed the tower recently. Then I noticed another set beside them. Bare feet, smaller. The toes pointed wrong. Backward. I stopped breathing for a second. The flashlight trembled slightly now. I crouched closer. No mistake. Heel facing forward. Toes pointed behind. The tracks circled the tower base once before disappearing into the trees. Something moved out there the second my light touched the forest. Fast. Too fast to identify. Branches shook violently for maybe 2 seconds, then stopped. I stood slowly. Hello? No answer. Only rain dripping through the pines. Then came the sound. Metal creaking high above me. I looked up instinctively. Near the top platform, someone stood against the railing. Tall silhouette. Motionless. Watching me. Lightning flashed overhead. And for half a second, I saw there was more than one figure standing up there. The darkness swallowed them again immediately. My pulse started hammering hard now. I reached for the radio. Dispatch! I've got possible trespassers inside the old fire tower. Static answered. Then a voice whispered through it softly. Not dispatch. Not mail this time. A child. They don't come down anymore. The tower light blinked again overhead, and somewhere above me in the darkness, something heavy began slowly walking down the metal stairs. The thing on the stairs stopped moving the moment my flashlight hit it. I couldn't fully see the figure. Just heavy boots standing on the rusted steps maybe 30 feet above me. Rain dripped through the metal grating around them. Then lightning flashed, and the stairs were empty again. I backed away from the tower immediately. Every nerve in my body screamed to leave that forest. The radio static, the voices, those backward footprints. Nothing about that place felt normal anymore. I got back inside the cruiser, fast enough to slam my shoulder against the doorframe. The warm air inside should have calmed me down. It didn't, because the second I shut the door, the radio crackled softly beside me. Unit 13. I froze. Different voice this time. Dispatch voice. Old recording quality. Status check. Static rolled through the speaker. Then silence. I stared at the radio for several seconds before grabbing the mic. Dispatch, you hearing this? Normal dispatch answered immediately. You okay out there, Weller? I looked toward the tower through the rain. The blinking light near the top had stopped. Now the whole structure stood dark against the forest. Yeah, I lied quietly. You got records on that tower? A pause. What kind of records? Anything unusual? Dispatch sighed softly like she already knew where this was going. You should come back to town. That wasn't my question. Another pause. Then, Sheriff might know more than me. The transmission clicked off. I sat there listening to rain for a while. The smart thing would have been leaving, but that voice on the stairs, it bothered me. Not because it scared me, because it sounded familiar somehow. Like I'd heard it before without realizing it. Then another thought hit me. Unit 32. Not a current unit number. Ours only went up to 21, which meant the transmission wasn't recent. I started the cruiser and headed back toward town. The deeper thought settled into me during the drive. The tower wasn't abandoned. Maybe officially, but somebody had definitely been there recently. And if old transmissions were somehow bleeding through county channels, there had to be a reason. By the time I reached the station, the storm had mostly passed. Only light rain remained. The sheriff's office looked half asleep at that hour. One patrol unit outside. Lobby lights dim. Coffee smelled drifting through the halls. Sheriff Boone sat alone at his desk, reading paperwork. When I walked in, he looked up immediately. You look awful. I ignored that. You ever hear of Unit 32? Something changed in his face instantly. Not much. Just enough. His eyes moved away for maybe half a second. That's old county numbering, he said. I stayed standing. Who had it? Boone leaned back slowly in his chair. Rain tapped softly against the office windows behind him. Why? I heard it over the radio near the fire tower. Silence filled the room. Then Boone sighed heavily. Deputy Alan Mercer. The name meant nothing to me. Something happened to him? Boone stared at the desk quietly for a moment. Then he reached toward an old filing cabinet behind him. The drawer squealed open. Dust coated most of the folders inside. He pulled one free slowly. Unit 32, Mercer. Even the folder looked old. Yellow edges. Water stains. I felt a strange heaviness settle into my stomach while Boone opened it. Mercer disappeared in 1987, he said quietly. Disappeared how? Responding to reports near Black Pine Tower. I stayed silent. Boone removed an old black and white photograph from the file and slid it across the desk. Young deputy. Late 20s maybe. Thin face. Dark hair. Standing beside an old patrol truck, smiling at the camera. The moment I saw him, my chest tightened. That was the face from the tower stairs. Not perfectly clear, but enough. I looked up slowly. He was seeing lights in the woods. Boone nodded once. That's what he reported. I sat down across from him. The office suddenly felt colder than before. What kind of lights? Boone rubbed his jaw tiredly, moving lights between the trees. He called dispatch 3 times that night. He opened the folder further. Inside sat old type reports covered in faded ink. Most were hard to read, but one page had red markings around several sentences. Boone handed it to me quietly. The paper shook slightly in my hands while I read. Unit 32 reports multiple light sources moving through tree line north of Fire Tower. Subject appears distressed, requesting additional units. Below that, another line. Unit 32 reports people standing between the trees. My eyes moved lower, then stopped completely. Last transmission received at 2:41 hours. They keep turning their lights off when I look at them. A slow chill crawled up my spine. That's it. I asked quietly. Boone nodded. Search teams found his truck next morning near the tower. What about Mercer? Boone stayed silent. That silence answered enough already. They never found him? No. Rain tapped softly outside. The station felt too quiet suddenly. I looked back down at the reports. Another page caught my attention. Handwritten notes. Messy, rushed, repeated in the margins over and over. Don't follow the lights. Don't let them surround you. I swallowed slowly. Who wrote this? Mercer. A long silence followed. Then Boone leaned forward slightly. You said you heard his unit number tonight? Yeah. You hear anything else? I hesitated, then nodded. Voices. His expression darkened immediately. What kind? Different ones. I thought about the crying woman, the child voice, the whispering, like radio chatter. Boone looked genuinely uncomfortable now. That tower's been causing problems for years. I frowned. What does that mean? Another pause. Then, people hear things out there. That's not an answer. It's the only one I got. I stared at him. Boone wasn't the kind of man who scared easily. 29 years in county law enforcement. Ex-Army. Hard as old wood. But tonight, he looked nervous. That bothered me more than the file did. He reached deeper into the folder again and removed the cassette tape sealed inside plastic. The label read, Mercer Final Transmission, dated October 11, 1987. You ever listen to it? I asked once. How bad is it? Boone didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, bad enough I locked the file away. That should have been enough warning. It wasn't. I wanted to hear it. Needed to. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew tonight wasn't over. Boone hesitated before finally standing and walking toward the old evidence room. A few minutes later, we sat in silence beside an ancient tape recorder in the back office. Dust floated through the dim fluorescent lights overhead. The tape clicked into place. For several seconds, only static played. Then came Mercer's voice. Young, breathing hard. Dispatch, this is Unit 32. Static crackled heavily beneath his words. I got lights moving through the trees north of the tower. His breathing sounded uneven now, fear creeping in slowly. There's too many of them. I glanced toward Boone. He stared at the floor. The tape hissed loudly. Then Mercer spoke again, closer to the microphone this time. They stop every time I stop. My skin prickled. In the background of the recording, I heard faint noises, movement, branches snapping. Then another voice entered the tape. Not dispatch. Soft whispering. Multiple voices layered together. Mercer heard them too. Who's talking? He asked nervously. Static exploded through the tape. Then came the part Boone warned me about. Mercer started crying. Not loudly. Quiet, terrified crying from a grown man trying desperately to stay calm. They're turning their flashlights on. I felt my chest tighten. Mercer's breathing sped up rapidly now. Oh, God! Then the tape captured something else. Footsteps. Dozens of footsteps moving through wet leaves around him. Circling. Mercer whispered into the radio. They're standing between the trees. The tape warbled. Then Mercer suddenly screamed. Not from pain. Recognition. Like he finally understood what he was seeing. The next words barely came out of him. Those aren't flashlights. Static screamed violently through the recorder speakers. Then came the final transmission. Whispered. Broken. Almost impossible to hear. Their eyes? The tape cut off completely. Silence filled the room. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then somewhere out in the station hallway, a radio crackled softly by itself, and a weak male voice whispered, "Unit 32 never cleared the call." I didn't go home after hearing the tape. That's probably the part people never understand when I tell this story. They always ask the same thing. Why would you go back? Truth is, once you hear fear like that in another man's voice, especially another deputy, it gets inside your head. Mercer hadn't sounded crazy. He sounded trapped. And the worst part was this. Right before I left the station that night, Sheriff Boone grabbed my arm and said something I still think about. "If you hear footsteps around the tower," he hesitated, "then look toward the dark hallway behind me. Don't look over the railing." I laughed a little at first, not because it was funny, because I genuinely thought he was trying to scare me away from going back. But Boone didn't smile. He looked exhausted, like a man who already knew I wouldn't listen. The drive back to Black Pine Forest felt longer than before. No rain this time, just fog, thick white fog rolling low through the trees. The road disappeared inside it every few seconds. My headlights barely reached 20 feet ahead. The whole forest looked dead. No wind, no insects, no animal sounds, nothing. Just tires crunching gravel and the low hum of the engine. I kept thinking about Mercer's tape. Their eyes, that final sentence replayed over and over in my head during the drive. And another thought bothered me too. The footprints around the tower. Backward feet. I tried explaining them away earlier. Maybe damaged prints. Maybe erosion. But deep down I knew what I saw. By the time I reached the access road again, it was almost 3 o'clock in the morning. The tower stood above the trees ahead, like a black needle against the clouds. Dark this time. No blinking light. No movement. That should have relieved me. Instead, it made the whole place feel abandoned in the worst possible way. Like whatever had been awake earlier was now hiding. I parked near the tower base again and stepped out slowly. Cold air hit my face immediately. The forest smelled wet and rotten. Pine needles covered the muddy ground around the structure. The tower itself groaned softly in the dark whenever wind pushed against it. I grabbed my flashlight and looked upward. Nothing on the stairs. Nothing at the top platform. Just rusted metal disappearing into darkness. Then the radio whispered beside me. "You came back?" I closed my eyes briefly. "Dispatch copy." Only static answered. The signal bars on my radio dropped to 1 weak flicker. I should have called for another unit before returning. But I didn't want Boone hearing I got spooked by old stories and radio noise. That pride nearly got me killed. I started toward the tower stairs carefully. The flashlight beam bounced across rusted support beams and rainwater puddles. That's when I heard the first footstep. Crunch. Somewhere behind me in the pine needles. I turned immediately. Nothing there. The forest stood perfectly still beyond the flashlight beam. I waited quietly. No movement. No sound. Just my breathing. I turned back toward the tower. Crunch. Another footstep. Repeated in the margins over and over. Don't follow the lights. Don't let them surround you. I swallowed slowly. Who wrote this? Mercer. A long silence followed. Then Boone leaned forward slightly. "You said you heard his unit number tonight?" "Yeah." "You hear anything else?" I hesitated, then nodded. Voices. His expression darkened immediately. "What kind?" "Different ones." I thought about the crying woman, the child voice, the whispering, like radio chatter. Boone looked genuinely uncomfortable now. That tower's been causing problems for years. I frowned. What does that mean? Another pause. Then, people hear things out there. That's not an answer. It's the only one I got. I stared at him. Boone wasn't the kind of man who scared easily. 29 years in county law enforcement. Ex-Army. Hard as old wood. But tonight, he looked nervous. That bothered me more than the file did. He reached deeper into the folder again and removed the cassette tape sealed inside plastic. The label read, Mercer Final Transmission, dated October 11th, 1987. You ever listen to it? I asked once. How bad is it? Boone didn't answer immediately. Finally he said, Bad enough I locked the file away. That should have been enough warning. It wasn't. I wanted to hear it. Needed to. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew tonight wasn't over. Boone hesitated before finally standing and walking toward the old evidence room. A few minutes later, we sat in silence beside an ancient tape recorder in the back office. Dust floated through the dim fluorescent lights overhead. The tape clicked into place. For several seconds, only static played. Then came Mercer's voice. Yum, breathing hard. Dispatch, this is Unit 32. Static crackled heavily beneath his words. I got lights moving through the trees north of the tower. His breathing sounded uneven now, fear creeping in slowly. There's too many of them. I glanced toward Boone. He stared at the floor. The tape hissed loudly. Then Mercer spoke again, closer to the microphone this time. They stop every time I stop. My skin prickled. In the background of the recording, I heard faint noises, movement, branches snapping. Then another voice entered the tape. Not dispatch. Soft whispering. Multiple voices layered together. Mercer heard them too. Who's talking? He asked nervously. Static exploded through the tape. Then came the part Boone warned me about. Mercer started crying. Not loudly. Quiet, terrified crying from a grown man trying desperately to stay calm. They're turning their flashlights on. I felt my chest tighten. Mercer's breathing sped up rapidly now. Oh, God! Then the tape captured something else. Footsteps. Dozens of footsteps moving through wet leaves around him. Circling. Mercer whispered into the radio. They're standing between the trees. The tape warbled. Then Mercer suddenly screamed. Not from pain. Recognition. Like he finally understood what he was seeing. The next words barely came out of him. Those aren't flashlights. Static screamed violently through the recorder speakers. Then came the final transmission. Whispered. Broken. Almost impossible to hear. Their eyes? The tape cut off completely. Silence filled the room. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then somewhere out in the station hallway, a radio crackled softly by itself, and a weak male voice whispered. Unit 32 never cleared the call. I didn't go home after hearing the tape. That's probably the part people never understand when I tell this story. They always ask the same thing. Why would you go back? Truth is, once you hear fear like that in another man's voice, especially another deputy, it gets inside your head. Mercer hadn't sounded crazy. He sounded trapped. And the worst part was this. Right before I left the station that night, Sheriff Boone grabbed my arm and said something I still think about. If you hear footsteps around the tower. He hesitated, then looked toward the dark hallway behind me. Don't look over the railing. I laughed a little at first, not because it was funny, because I genuinely thought he was trying to scare me away from going back. But Boone didn't smile. He looked exhausted, like a man who already knew I wouldn't listen. The drive back to Black Pine Forest felt longer than before. No rain this time, just fog, thick white fog rolling low through the trees. The road disappeared inside it every few seconds. My headlights barely reached 20 feet ahead. The whole forest looked dead. No wind, no insects, no animal sounds, nothing. Just tires crunching gravel and the low hum of the engine. I kept thinking about Mercer's tape. Their eyes. That final sentence replayed over and over in my head during the drive. And another thought bothered me too. The footprints around the tower. Backward feet. I tried explaining them away earlier. Maybe damaged prints. Maybe erosion. But deep down I knew what I saw. By the time I reached the access road again, it was almost 3 o'clock in the morning. The tower stood above the trees ahead, like a black needle against the clouds. Dark this time. No blinking light. No movement. That should have relieved me. Instead, it made the whole place feel abandoned in the worst possible way. Like whatever had been awake earlier was now hiding. I parked near the tower base again and stepped out slowly. Cold air hit my face immediately. The forest smelled wet and rotten. Pine needles covered the muddy ground around the structure. The tower itself groaned softly in the dark whenever wind pushed against it. I grabbed my flashlight and looked upward. Nothing on the stairs. Nothing at the top platform. Just rusted metal disappearing into darkness. Then the radio whispered beside me, "You came back?" I closed my eyes briefly. "Dispatch copy." Only static answered. The signal bars on my radio dropped to 1 week flicker. I should have called for another unit before returning, but I didn't want Boone hearing I got spooked by old stories and radio noise. That pride nearly got me killed. I started toward the tower stairs carefully. The flashlight beam bounced across rusted support beams and rainwater puddles. That's when I heard the first footstep. Crunch. Somewhere behind me in the pine needles. I turned immediately. Nothing there. The forest stood perfectly still beyond the flashlight beam. I waited quietly. No movement. No sound. Just my breathing. I turned back toward the tower. Crunch. Another footstep. Closer this time. Behind me again. I swung the flashlight fast enough to blur the trees. Empty. My pulse started climbing slowly now. "Hello?" No answer. Then came a third step. Not hidden this time. Slow. Deliberate. Circling somewhere beyond the flashlight beam. Crunch. 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 I rotated slowly, trying to follow it. Every time I turned, the sound moved too, always staying behind me, never fully revealing itself. The realization hit me hard after maybe 30 seconds. Something was walking circles around the tower, around me, but I couldn't see it. The flashlight shook slightly in my grip now. "County Sheriff's Department." I shouted into the trees. "Show yourself." Silence. Then another crunch behind me. Closer. I spun again. Nothing. But this time, I noticed fresh footprints appearing in the mud near the tower supports. Bare feet, one after another, pressing slowly into the ground. Like an invisible person stood there making them. My chest tightened instantly. The mud depressed under unseen weight. Left foot, right foot, slowly circling the tower. I stumbled backward. The prints continued appearing one at a time. Crunch. Step. Crunch. Step. The sound matched perfectly. I couldn't breathe for a second. Then the radio crackled loudly. "Don't stop moving." Mercer's voice. Weak through the static. "It gets closer when you stand still." I turned toward the cruiser, instinctively. The driver's side dome light had turned on by itself. Something moved inside the vehicle. A shadow crossing the front seat. I aimed the flashlight toward it. Nothing there. The light inside switched off immediately after. Darkness swallowed the cruiser again. The footsteps around me stopped too. The silence that followed felt worse than the sounds, like the forest itself was listening. Then the tower creaked overhead, metal groaning slowly. I looked up, halfway up the stairs. Someone stood looking down at me. Tall figure, sheriff's uniform. Old style, not modern county issue. My stomach dropped immediately. Deputy Mercer. I knew it somehow before lightning flashed. And when the light finally illuminated the tower, the stairs were empty again. I backed away from the structure, slowly. Every instinct screamed to leave. But another part of me noticed something strange. The footprints circling the tower had stopped near the base stairs. Dozens of them now pressed into the mud, all facing upward, like whatever made them had climbed the tower. Without hesitation, without weight, I aimed the flashlight carefully up the stairwell. Rusted steps spiraled into darkness above me, and somewhere high overhead, I heard footsteps again. Slow metal clangs descending the stairs. Clang, pause, clang, not running, walking calmly downward. My mouth went dry. I backed farther away. The footsteps continued, closer now. Clang, clang. The tower groaned harder with each step. Then another sound drifted down from above. Breathing, heavy breathing, like somebody exhausted after running for miles. Mercer's voice crackled softly through my radio again. "Don't let it reach the bottom." I grabbed the mic quickly. "What reaches the bottom?" Static swallowed the answer. The footsteps stopped instantly after. Complete silence returned. I stood frozen near the cruiser, staring upward. Nothing moved. Nothing climbed down. For almost a full minute, the tower remained still. Then my flashlight flickered once. Just once. But during that brief flicker, I saw faces between the trees. Dozens of pale faces standing silently in the forest surrounding the tower. Men, Women, children, watching. The light steadied again. The woods were empty. I felt genuine panic then. Not nerves, not unease. Panic. I got inside the cruiser immediately and locked the doors. The moment I did, something walked past the vehicle outside. Not visible, just footsteps crunching slowly through pine needles beside my door, then around the rear of the cruiser, then along the passenger side, circling me now instead of the tower. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I turned my flashlight toward the windows. Nothing there, but the suspension of the cruiser shifted slightly each time the footsteps passed, like somebody heavy walked beside it. My breathing became shallow. The footsteps stopped directly outside the driver door. Silence. Then came 3 slow knocks against the window. Knock, knock, knock. I nearly dropped the flashlight. There was nobody outside. Nobody. Then the radio screamed with static, so violently the speaker distorted. And through all that noise, I heard Boone's voice, not over dispatch. Close, like he stood beside me whispering directly into my ear. Don't look over the railing. The tower lights suddenly switched on overhead, every floodlight at once. Bright, white beams exploded through the forest, and all around the tower, hundreds of human shadows stretched across the trees, but there were no bodies casting them. At exactly 3:11 in the morning, every radio in the county started screaming, not crackling, not normal interference. Screaming. I nearly drove off the access road when it happened. The sound exploded through the cruiser speakers, so loud it rattled the dashboard. Static flooded every channel at once. Dispatch, state police, fire, EMS, all buried beneath one long burst of human panic. Then a man's voice cut through it. Terrified, raw, don't look into the trees. The transmission echoed hard enough to distort. Then static swallowed it again. My hands locked around the steering wheel. The forest outside flashed white beneath the tower floodlights ahead. Those shadows still stretched across the woods. Hundreds of them. Long human shapes moving silently between the pines, without bodies attached to them. Then every floodlight shut off at once. Darkness crashed back over the forest. The radio hissed softly, and the terrified voice returned. They're watching when you look at them. I grabbed the mic immediately. This is Deputy Weller. Identify yourself. More static. Then another voice answered. Not the terrified man. Dispatch. But wrong somehow. Slower. All units stand by. The words dragged unnaturally, like somebody learning how to imitate a human voice. Do not acknowledge visual contact. Cold spread slowly through my chest. The transmission clicked off. Then every radio frequency in the cruiser began talking at once. Overlapping voices. Officers yelling. Dispatchers crying. People asking for locations. One deputy screaming somebody's name repeatedly. The noise became impossible to understand, like the entire county had suddenly drowned in panic together. I slammed the radio volume lower. Didn't help. The voices kept bleeding through every speaker. Even the handheld unit on my belt crackled alive. Woods behind my vehicle. They're standing near the road. Don't shine your lights. A horrible metallic screech interrupted the transmission. Then gunshots. 3 of them. Silence followed. I sat frozen behind the wheel, staring into darkness outside the cruiser windows. The tower had vanished completely now. No lights. No movement. Only fog drifting slowly between the trees. Then something crossed the road ahead. Fast. Not running. Gliding. My headlights caught pale legs for maybe half a second before it disappeared into the woods. I threw the cruiser into reverse instinctively. Tires spun in mud. The radio exploded again. This time the voice sounded familiar. Sheriff Boone. Everybody listened carefully. His breathing sounded uneven, like he was running. Do not follow any lights in the forest. Static hissed heavily behind him. Then Boone lowered his voice. If you hear footsteps outside your vehicle. He stopped speaking abruptly. For a second, all I heard was wind rushing through his microphone. Then Boone whispered, "They can hear you breathing." The transmission died instantly afterward. I grabbed the mic again. "Sheriff?" "Sheriff," respond. Nothing, only static. Then another voice entered the channel quietly. Female, crying softly. Please don't leave me out here. I closed my eyes briefly. That wasn't dispatch. Wasn't an officer. And somehow, I already knew the voice wasn't alive either. The forest outside shifted again. Movement between the trees. Dozens of pale shapes standing motionless beyond the headlights. Too tall, too thin. My pulse hammered violently now. I started backing the cruiser down the access road faster. Mud sprayed behind the tires. The headlights bounced wildly across the trees. Every few seconds, I caught glimpses of figures standing deeper in the woods, never moving while I looked directly at them, but always closer afterward. The radio screamed again. This time, every voice stopped except one. Mercer, weak and distorted. They know your face now. I hit the brakes hard. My stomach turned cold. What does that mean? Static crackled softly. Then Mercer answered. You looked at them. The transmission cut. A branch slammed hard against the passenger side window suddenly. I jerked toward it instinctively. Nothing there, but muddy handprints slowly dragged downward across the glass. Human hands. Long fingers. Too many joints. I hit the gas immediately. The cruiser fishtailed violently around the narrow forest road. The tower disappeared behind the trees. But the radio chaos only got worse. Now I could hear dispatch centers from neighboring counties bleeding through too. Dozens of confused voices overlapping. All units report visual disturbances. Officers refusing to leave vehicles. We lost contact near Pine Ridge. Something standing behind the station. The transmission cut into screaming again. Not fear, pain. A deputy somewhere in the county was screaming like something had grabbed him. Then silence swallowed the channel. I couldn't think straight anymore. Every shadow between the trees looked alive now. The fog moved strangely, almost breathing. Then all at once, every radio channel went dead. Complete silence. No static. No dispatch. Nothing. The sudden quiet felt worse than the noise. I slowed the cruiser carefully. The road ahead curved sharply downhill through thick pine forest, and standing directly in the middle of the road was a man in an old deputy uniform. My headlights illuminated him clearly. Tall, thin, hat missing, face pale as wet paper. Deputy Mercer. He stood completely still staring at me. Rainwater dripped from his sleeves, though it wasn't raining anymore. I froze behind the wheel. Mercer slowly lifted one shaking hand, not waving, pointing toward the woods beside the road. I followed his finger before I could stop myself. At first I saw nothing. Then the darkness between the trees blinked. Hundreds of tiny white lights opening all at once deep in the forest. Eyes! My breath caught hard in my throat. Not reflections. Actual eyes. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Floating motionless between the trunks. Watching the road. Watching me. Mercer's mouth moved slowly. I couldn't hear him through the glass, but I knew exactly what he was saying. Don't look. The lights began moving closer together through the trees. Silent. Perfectly coordinated. Like an entire crowd walking in step, without bodies. Then Mercer vanished. Not walked away. Vanished. 1 second, standing there. Next second gone. The headlights illuminated empty road again. I threw the cruiser into drive immediately and sped downhill. The eyes followed through the forest beside me, keeping pace between the trees. Hundreds of white points drifting silently through darkness. Then the radios across the dashboard activated together one final time. Every speaker in the cruiser crackled with static, and the terrified voice from earlier returned louder than before. You let them see you. The voice broke apart into sobbing. I made the same mistake. I gripped the steering wheel harder. Who are you? Static screamed through the speakers painfully loud. Then came the answer. Unit 32. My blood went cold. Mercer. But before I could respond, another voice interrupted him. Deep, calm, not human. Look outside. Every instinct in my body told me not to, but fear does strange things, especially when something speaks with absolute certainty. My eyes shifted toward the passenger window, and I saw a face walking beside the cruiser, not attached to a body. Just a pale human face floating level with the glass in the dark. Its eyes glowed softly white. Its mouth hung open too wide, watching me, keeping pace perfectly beside the moving vehicle. Then another face appeared behind it, then 5 more deeper between the trees, all smiling. The cruiser swerved hard across the muddy road. I nearly lost control. The floating faces didn't chase. They simply watched me pass, waiting, like they already knew where I was going. I reached the county highway, maybe 5 minutes later. Streetlights finally appeared ahead through the darkness. Civilization. Relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. Then my radio whispered softly one last time. They followed you out. I looked in the rear-view mirror instinctively, and far behind the cruiser, just beyond the forest line, hundreds of tiny white lights stood motionless between the trees bordering the highway. The road back to town disappeared. I don't mean I missed a turn. I mean the actual highway vanished behind the fog. 1 second I was driving south toward county lights. The next second my headlights hit trees again. Pine trees, endless pine trees. And the fire tower stood ahead of me through the mist like I had never left. I slammed the brakes so hard the cruiser skidded sideways in the mud. No! The tower light blinked slowly above the forest. White. Darkness. White again. My hands shook against the steering wheel. I looked behind me. Nothing but fog swallowing the road. No highway. No lights. No town. Just forest. The radio crackled softly beside me. You took the North Road again. Mercer's voice. Weak. Almost sympathetic now. I grabbed the mic immediately. How am I back here? Static rolled through the speaker. Then I asked the same thing. The transmission died. I stepped out of the cruiser slowly. Cold fog wrapped around everything immediately, thicker than before. It moved strangely between the trees, not drifting, flowing like slow river currents through the woods. The tower groaned overhead, metal shifting softly in the dark. I looked toward the access road behind me again. Gone. Not hidden. Gone. Fog stood like a wall beyond the cruiser headlights. I couldn't see 10 feet into it. That was when I noticed the second patrol vehicle, parked near the tower base. Old county paint scheme. Rust spreading across the doors. My stomach tightened instantly. Unit 32. Mercer's vehicle. Rainwater dripped from the hood, even though the storm had already passed hours ago. The driver door stood slightly open. I approached carefully. My flashlight beam shook across the windshield. Inside sat an old radio unit coated in dust. Coffee cup still resting in the console. Keys hanging in the ignition, like somebody parked it and vanished mid-shift. Then the radio inside Mercer's cruiser hissed alive. Dispatch. His voice sounded clearer now. Not like a ghost. Like a real deputy talking over an active radio. I lost the road. Static crackled softly behind him. I think I circled back. My blood ran cold. I slowly realized what I was hearing. Not a recording. A moment. The forest was replaying his final night. The radio clicked again. Dispatch answered him. Normal dispatch. Real dispatch. Unit 32. Clarify your location. Mercer breathed heavily. I'm back at the tower. I stared into the old cruiser, silently. The transmission sounded completely real, like it was happening right now somewhere nearby. Then Mercer whispered something quietly. They're moving closer. The radio died again. The fog thickened around the tower. I suddenly heard another sound nearby. Footsteps. Fast footsteps crunching through wet pine needles. I turned sharply toward the woods. Flashlight beam cutting through fog. Nothing there, but the footsteps kept running somewhere close by, circling. Then a man burst through the fog between the trees. I nearly drew my weapon. Deputy Mercer. Young. Alive. He stumbled into the clearing, breathing hard, flashlight shaking violently in his hand. And the horrifying part was this. He couldn't see me. Mercer ran straight past my cruiser, without reacting, like I wasn't there at all. Mud covered his uniform pants. Blood dripped slowly from one sleeve. He looked terrified beyond reason. He grabbed the radio inside his cruiser frantically. Dispatch. Static hissed loudly. They're still following me. I stood frozen, maybe 10 feet away listening. This wasn't a ghost. It felt real. Too real. Mercer looked toward the woods behind him, and I followed his gaze instinctively. Shapes moved through the fog between the trees. Tall silhouettes. Dozens of them. Not walking. Swaying slowly. Watching him. Mercer's breathing turned ragged. They're not people. The radio crackled. Dispatch answered weakly through static. Unit 32, additional officers are en route. Mercer laughed suddenly. A broken, terrified laugh. No one's coming up here. Then he looked directly toward me. My heart nearly stopped. For one horrible second, I thought he finally saw me, but his eyes focused slightly beside my shoulder instead, at something standing behind me. I turned instantly. Nothing there. When I faced Mercer again, he was gone. The clearing stood empty, except for fog drifting around the tower legs. The old cruiser remained parked silently beside mine. My pulse hammered hard enough to hurt. Then I heard another noise. Metal footsteps climbing the tower stairs. Fast. Clang. 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 I looked upward. A flashlight beam bounced wildly near the middle platform. Mercer again. Running upward now. I don't know why I followed him. Maybe because I thought I could stop whatever happened next. Maybe because once you witness another man's final moments, some part of you feels responsible. The tower stairs groaned beneath my boots while I climbed. Fog wrapped around the structure, so thick I could barely see below anymore. Only darkness beneath the metal grating. Mercer's flashlight flashed somewhere above me. Then his voice echoed through the tower. "Stay back." Not directed at me. Directed at something else climbing behind him. I froze halfway up the stairs. Below me, footsteps answered from the darkness underneath the tower. Slow, heavy, coming upward. Clang, pause, clang. I shined my flashlight downward through the grating. At first I saw nothing except fog. Then pale faces slowly emerged below the tower. Looking upward, dozens of them crowded together beneath the structure. Men, women, children, white glowing eyes fixed on the stairs. None of them blinked. My chest tightened painfully. Mercer screamed somewhere above me. The sound snapped me back into motion. I climbed faster. The stairs shook harder now. The footsteps below kept following. Always the same distance beneath me. Clang, pause, clang. Mercer reached the top platform first. His flashlight swung wildly across the fog. Then he shouted something I couldn't fully hear. I finally stepped onto the upper platform seconds later and stopped cold. The tower cabin door hung open. Inside sat an old radio operator desk coated in dust. But the equipment was running, lights blinking softly, static hissing through speakers. Impossible. This place had no power for decades. Mercer stood near the windows, breathing hard, still unable to see me. He looked toward the forest below, then whispered, "Oh, God." I slowly approached the railing despite Boone's warning. The fog beneath the tower shifted slowly apart, and I finally saw them clearly. Hundreds of pale figures standing motionless between the trees surrounding the tower. Every single face pointed upward, watching, waiting. The glowing eyes looked like floating lanterns in the darkness. Mercer backed away from the railing, trembling violently. They followed me out of the woods. The radio equipment crackled suddenly. Then a woman's voice filled the cabin softly. "Alan." Mercer froze instantly, not from fear. Recognition. Tears filled his eyes immediately. "Emily?" The voice came again through static. "Help me." Mercer moved toward the radio like a man hypnotized. I felt sick instantly. This was wrong. The voice sounded human, but empty somehow, like the forest learned how to imitate people. Mercer grabbed the microphone desperately. "Emily, where are you?" Static hissed. Then, below you, the entire tower creaked violently. The footsteps climbing beneath us suddenly stopped. Silence swallowed everything. Even the forest below went still. Mercer slowly looked down to the metal floor, grating beneath his boots. And against every instinct, I looked too. A pale face stared upward directly beneath the platform, smiling, not attached to a body. Just a face hanging upside down under the stairs with glowing white eyes. Mercer screamed and stumbled backward hard enough to slam against the cabin wall. Then every radio speaker inside the tower activated together. Dispatch voices, deputies, crying, screaming, all overlapping at once. And through that chaos, I heard my own voice. Calm, distorted. This is Deputy Weller. My blood turned to ice. Then the voice continued through the static. No one heard me leave. The first call came in at 1:07 a.m. At first, I thought it was a joke. The caller was breathing so fast, I could barely understand him. Then I caught the words. The lake is gone. I looked at the console in front of me. Quiet night shift. Almost nothing happening across the county. Just routine patrol check-ins and a few animal reports. So I asked him to repeat. His voice cracked on the second try. The water, it's gone. The whole lake. It's just empty ground now. I remember leaning closer to the radio. Sir, which lake are you talking about? A pause. Too long. Then another voice came in behind him. A woman. Panicked. Tell them we're not joking. It's just dirt now. The boats are on the ground. That line made my stomach tighten. Boats don't sit on dirt in the middle of the night. Not unless something very wrong has happened. I checked the map instantly. Northridge Lake. Remote camping site. Closed after winter flooding issues. No reason for anyone to be there at this hour. I keyed the mic. Stay where you are. I'm sending a unit. But the man cut in again. No, you don't understand. The lake didn't drain. It just stopped being there. Then static swallowed his voice. Silence returned. I sat there for a few seconds, staring at the radio like it might explain itself. Then dispatch line 2 lit up again. Same caller. Same panic. But now his voice sounded closer, like he was standing right beside me instead of miles away. Do you hear that? I frowned. Hear what? He whispered. The water used to make sound. Now there's nothing. Then the line cut again. I should have marked it as hallucination or prank, but something about his voice felt wrong. Not fake, not staged. Just terrified in a way people don't usually manage. I sent Deputy Harris anyway. Standard procedure. Check the campsite. Confirm no trespassers. Report back. Simple. 10 minutes later, the radio crackled again, but it wasn't Harris. It was dispatch. Confused. Unit 27, do you copy? I leaned forward. That's Harris. He's en route to Northridge. Long pause. Then dispatch said something that made my chest go cold. There's no water at Northridge. I looked up immediately. That's not what I just got a report for. Another pause. Then dispatch replied slower. Sheriff, I'm looking at satellite feed right now. Static filled the silence. Then her voice came back quieter. The lake is gone. I stood up without thinking. Walked over to the station window. Outside, everything looked normal. Dark road. Trees moving slightly in wind. Distant headlights passing on the highway. But something inside me already felt off balance, like reality had shifted slightly, and I was the only one noticing. The radio hissed again. A new voice came in, Deputy Harris, but he sounded far away, too far, even though he should have been only 10 minutes from the lake. I'm here. I grabbed the mic. What do you see? Silence. Then, there's no water. A pause. Then his breathing changed. Faster. Unstable. It's just ground. Dry, cracked earth. Like it's been empty for years. I looked at dispatch. She was already shaking her head. That's not possible. That lake was full 2 days ago. Harris whispered into the radio again. There are boats here. My grip tightened. Described them. Another pause. Then Harris said something I still can't fully explain. They're resting on the bottom, but there is no bottom. I felt my throat go dry. What does that mean? He didn't answer immediately. Then his voice dropped lower, like he was afraid of being heard. The ground goes down forever. Static burst through the speaker. Then a second voice entered the channel. Not Harris. Not dispatch. A man. Calm. Almost gentle. Do not approach the shore. I froze. Identify yourself. I said immediately. No answer. Just that same voice again. Closer now. You are already too close. Dispatch looked at me sharply. Nothing else is transmitting on that frequency. But I was still hearing it. So was Harris, because his voice came back again, shaking harder now. There's someone standing where the water should be. My stomach dropped. Ooh, Harris whispered. I think it's me. Silence at the radio so hard it felt physical. Then another transmission cut in. Different channel this time. County Patrol Band. Then Fire Band. Then Emergency Backup. All of them at once. And every single one carried the same message. A repeating emergency call. The lake is empty. Do not approach the shore. Over and over. Different voices. Same sentence. I stepped back from the console. What the hell is going on with the system? Dispatch checked the board. No system overlap. No cross-channel feed. This shouldn't be possible. But it was happening. Every radio in the station was speaking the same thing now. Even the handheld units on officers' belts were crackling the same message. The lake is empty. I felt the air in the room change, like pressure dropping before a storm. Then Harris came back one last time. And this time, he wasn't whispering. He was crying. I'm walking toward it. I can't stop. I slammed the mic. Stop moving, Harris. That's an order. Static swallowed everything. Then silence. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then Dispatch whispered something quietly. She's watching him. I turned toward her. Who is? She pointed at the radar screen. My eyes followed. At first, it looked like interference. Then it sharpened. A shape forming in the center of North Ridge Lake's location. A perfect circular void. No reflection. No water movement. Just absence. Like the lake had been erased from existence. And standing at the edge of that empty circle was a single moving dot. Harris, walking, slowly, toward the center. I grabbed the radio again. Deputy Harris, turn around immediately. No response, only his breathing. But now it sounded different, calmer, like something had replaced panic with acceptance. Then he spoke softly. I can see the bottom now. I shook my head. There is no bottom. A pause. Then Harris answered. There is now. And then he stopped breathing. Completely. Silence filled every channel at once. No static. No voices. Just nothing. I stared at the console, waiting for something to come back. Anything. But instead, Dispatch Line 3 lit up. New caller. Same lake. Different voice. This one was older. Slower. Like someone speaking from underwater. The lake is full again. I felt my hands go cold. That's not possible. I whispered. The voice responded gently. It never left. The first thing I saw when I arrived at North Ridge wasn't the lake. It was the absence of it. A perfect bowl carved into the earth. Dry. Cracked. Wrong. Like someone had scooped the water out of reality itself and left the ground behind. Deputy Harris's patrol car sat near the old shoreline, half tilted into mud that looked too old to be fresh. No water. Not even a puddle. Just dead silence stretching for miles. I stepped out of my vehicle slowly. The air felt heavier here. Thicker, like the place was holding its breath. Behind me, Deputy Collins spoke quietly. This isn't possible. This lake was full last week. I didn't answer, because I couldn't take my eyes off the boats. They were still there, dozens of them, resting directly on the lake bed like the water had simply decided to leave without warning. Fishing boats, small tourist pontoons, one overturned canoe stuck halfway into the dirt, all of them tilted at wrong angles, as if they had fallen through something instead of floating down gently. I walked forward before I even realized I was moving. My boots hit cracked earth that used to be underwater. Every step made a dry, crunching sound that felt too loud in the open space. Collins followed behind me. Slower now. Uncomfortable. We reached the first boat together. It was rusted along the bottom edge, with swollen and warped. Inside, fishing gear still sat untouched. Hooks. Lines. A cooler with the lid half open, like the people had just stepped away for a moment and never returned. Collins whispered, "Where are the bodies?" I didn't want to think about that, but the question hung in the air anyway. We kept moving deeper into the basin. The center of the lake should have been underwater. Instead, it looked like a crater, a perfect circular depression in the earth. And that's when we saw the fish. At first, I thought they were rocks, scattered across the mud, gray shapes baked into the ground. But then one of them twitched. I froze. "Don't move," I said instantly. Collins leaned closer, then stepped back fast. "Oh my God!" The fish were alive, barely, flopping weakly in shallow grooves carved into dried lake bed. But there was no water around them, just air. They opened and closed their mouths like they were still trying to breathe something that wasn't there anymore. I crouched slowly. The mud beneath one fish was cracked open in a long, jagged line, like something had split the ground from below. I followed it with my flashlight. The crack widened as it went deeper, then dropped sharply into darkness. Not a hole, a vertical gap, perfectly straight down. No visible bottom. Collins swallowed hard behind me. That wasn't there on the satellite images. I shined my light into the opening. The beam didn't bounce back. It just disappeared, like the light was being taken instead of reflected. A cold feeling spread through my chest. I stood up quickly, checked the perimeter. Now, we split up along the edge of the basin. The farther I walked, the more those holes I found. Dozens of them, some small, some wide enough to swallow a vehicle, all leading straight down into blackness. No sound came from inside them, not even wind, just silence that felt wrong in a physical way. Collins called out suddenly, "Sheriff, you need to see this." I turned toward him. He was standing near a collapsed dock structure that now rested completely on dry land. But that wasn't what he was pointing at. It was what lay beneath it. Another hole, but this one was different, wider, and something was moving inside, slow, like something shifting just out of sight. I approached carefully, every instinct telling me not to look too long. The hole stretched deep under the dock, and for a moment I thought I saw something pale near the edge. A shape, maybe a hand, maybe just mud. Then it moved again. Collins stepped back. "I'm calling it in. We need excavation." The radio on his shoulder crackled suddenly, but not dispatch, not our channel. A voice came through instead. "Calm, too calm. You are standing at the wrong shore." Collins froze. "What frequency is this?" I grabbed my radio immediately. "Identify yourself." No response. Just that same voice again. "You should not be looking down." The ground beneath the dock creaked, a sound like pressure shifting deep underground. Collins backed away fast. "I don't like this. I don't like this at all." Then something changed. The fish stopped moving. Every single one of them. At the same time. No flopping. No breathing. Just stillness. Like they were listening. A long silence followed. Then from one of the deep holes, a sound. Not water. Not wind. A voice. No system overlap. No cross-channel feed. This shouldn't be possible. But it was happening. Every radio in the station was speaking the same thing now. Even the handheld units on officers' belts were crackling the same message. The lake is empty. I felt the air in the room change, like pressure dropping before a storm. Then Harris came back one last time. And this time, he wasn't whispering. He was crying. "I'm walking toward it. I can't stop." I slammed the mic. "Stop moving, Harris." "That's an order." Static swallowed everything. Then silence. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then dispatch whispered something quietly. "She's watching him." I turned toward her. "Who is?" She pointed at the radar screen. My eyes followed. At first, it looked like interference. Then it sharpened. A shape forming in the center of North Ridge Lake's location. A perfect circular void. No reflection. No water movement. Just absence. Like the lake had been erased from existence. And standing at the edge of that empty circle was a single moving dot. Harris, walking, slowly, toward the center. I grabbed the radio again. "Deputy Harris, turn around immediately." No response, only his breathing. But now it sounded different, calmer, like something had replaced panic with acceptance. Then he spoke softly. "I can see the bottom now." I shook my head. "There is no bottom." A pause. Then Harris answered. "There is now." and then he stopped breathing. Completely. Silence filled every channel at once. No static, no voices, just nothing. I stared at the console, waiting for something to come back. Anything. But instead, dispatch line 3 lit up. New caller. Same lake. Different voice. This one was older, slower, like someone speaking from underwater. The lake is full again. I felt my hands go cold. That's not possible, I whispered. The voice responded gently. It never left. The first thing I saw when I arrived at North Ridge wasn't the lake. It was the absence of it. A perfect bowl carved into the earth. Dry, cracked, wrong. Like someone had scooped the water out of reality itself and left the ground behind. Deputy Harris's patrol car sat near the old shoreline, half tilted into mud that looked too old to be fresh. No water, not even a puddle. Just dead silence stretching for miles. I stepped out of my vehicle slowly. The air felt heavier here, thicker, like the place was holding its breath. Behind me, Deputy Collins spoke quietly. This isn't possible. This lake was full last week. I didn't answer, because I couldn't take my eyes off the boats. They were still there, dozens of them, resting directly on the lake bed like the water had simply decided to leave without warning. Fishing boats, small tourist pontoons. One overturned canoe stuck halfway into the dirt, all of them tilted at wrong angles, as if they had fallen through something instead of floating down gently. I walked forward before I even realized I was moving. My boots hit cracked earth that used to be underwater. Every step made a dry, crunching sound that felt too loud in the open space. Collins followed behind me. Slower now, uncomfortable. We reached the first boat together. It was rusted along the bottom edge, with swollen and warped. Inside, fishing gear still sat untouched. Hooks, lines, a cooler with the lid half open, like the people had just stepped away for a moment and never returned. Collins whispered, "Where are the bodies?" I didn't want to think about that, but the question hung in the air anyway. We kept moving deeper into the basin. The center of the lake should have been underwater. Instead, it looked like a crater, a perfect circular depression in the earth. And that's when we saw the fish. At first, I thought they were rocks, scattered across the mud, gray shapes baked into the ground. But then one of them twitched. I froze. "Don't move," I said instantly. Collins leaned closer, then stepped back fast. "Oh my God!" The fish were alive, barely, flopping weakly in shallow grooves carved into the dried lake bed. But there was no water around them, just air. They opened and closed their mouths like they were still trying to breathe something that wasn't there anymore. I crouched slowly. The mud beneath one fish was cracked open in a long, jagged line, like something had split the ground from below. I followed it with my flashlight. The crack widened as it went deeper, then dropped sharply into darkness. Not a hole, a vertical gap, perfectly straight down. No visible bottom. Collins swallowed hard behind me. That wasn't there on the satellite images. I shined my light into the opening. The beam didn't bounce back. It just disappeared, like the light was being taken instead of reflected. A cold feeling spread through my chest. I stood up quickly, checked the perimeter. Now, we split up along the edge of the basin. The farther I walked, the more of those holes I found. Dozens of them, some small, some wide enough to swallow a vehicle, all leading straight down into blackness. No sound came from inside them, not even wind, just silence that felt wrong in a physical way. Collins called out suddenly, "Sheriff, you need to see this." I turned toward him. He was standing near a collapsed dock structure that now rested completely on dry land. But that wasn't what he was pointing at. It was what lay beneath it. Another hole, but this one was different, wider, and something was moving inside, slow, like something shifting just out of sight. I approached carefully, every instinct telling me not to look too long. The hole stretched deep under the dock, and for a moment I thought I saw something pale near the edge. A shape, maybe a hand, maybe just mud. Then it moved again. Collins stepped back. "I'm calling it in. We need excavation." The radio on his shoulder crackled suddenly, but not dispatch, not our channel. A voice came through instead. Calm. Too calm. You are standing at the wrong shore. Collins froze. What frequency is this? I grabbed my radio immediately. Identify yourself. No response. Just that same voice again. You should not be looking down. The ground beneath the dock creaked. A sound like pressure shifting deep underground. Collins backed away fast. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Then something changed. The fish stopped moving. Every single one of them. At the same time. No flopping. No breathing. Just stillness. Like they were listening. A long silence followed. Then from one of the deep holes, a sound. Not water. Not wind. A voice. Soft. Distant. But unmistakably human. Hello. I felt my stomach drop instantly. Collins whispered, "That's Harris." I turned sharply. Impossible. He's not down there. The voice came again, fainter this time. I can see lights. Static exploded through every radio at once. All channels, all frequencies, even backup units. The same message repeated across all of them. The lake is full again, over and over. Collins covered his ears. What is happening? I didn't answer, because I was watching the fish again. They were starting to move, not randomly, together, all of them slowly turning their heads toward the same direction, toward the center of the empty basin, toward the deepest hole, the one that didn't reflect any light. The voice came again from inside it, closer now. I found the bottom, then a pause, long enough that I almost thought it was gone. Then it whispered, and it's looking back. The hole began to pulse softly, not light, not sound, something between both, like pressure shifting inside reality itself. Collins grabbed my arm. We need to leave. Now. I nodded. For once, I agreed instantly. We turned toward the vehicles. But that's when we saw it. The boats. They were no longer resting at random angles. They were all pointing inward, every single one, aligned perfectly toward the center of the empty lake, like something had arranged them, or like they had always been arranged that way. We moved faster now, back toward the edge, but the ground beneath us wasn't the same anymore. It felt softer, sinking slightly with each step, like the lake bed was remembering what it used to be. Then the radio on my belt crackled one final time. A voice I recognized instantly. Harris, but not panicked anymore, not afraid, just calm, too calm. I can see you now. I stopped walking. Collins kept moving a few steps ahead before realizing I was behind him. He turned. What? I lifted my radio slowly. Harris, where are you? A soft laugh came through the speaker, but it didn't sound like relief. It sounded like understanding. I never left. Behind us, one of the deep holes exhaled, a slow rush of air rising from below, carrying something with it, a smell like wet earth after rain. Except there was no water here. Not anymore. And as I looked back toward the center of the empty lake, the boats had started to sink into the ground, not falling, not collapsing, just slowly disappearing downward, like something beneath the earth had finally opened its eyes again. It started on Channel 7. At first, it sounded like normal interference, just static breaking through patrol chatter. Then the screaming began. Not one voice, many, stacked on top of each other like the radio couldn't decide which moment in time to play. I grabbed the mic instantly. Channel 7, identify yourself. Only static answered. Then a voice cut through it. A woman, breathing hard. Why is the ground open? I froze. Beside me, Deputy Collins looked up from his radio. You hearing this too? I nodded slowly. The woman's voice came again, shaking now. The lake, it's under us. We can see it below the dirt. My stomach tightened. I looked out toward the basin through the windshield. From here, Northridge Lake looked even more wrong than before, like a wound in the earth that refused to close. Collins keyed his mic. This is County Dispatch. State your location. A pause. Then the radio replied with something that made my skin go cold. Coordinates match Northridge Lake. I looked at Collins immediately. That's impossible. That's us. The radio hissed loudly. Then another voice entered. A man this time. Calm. Too calm. We are already here. The static shifted. And suddenly the channel wasn't just one voice anymore. It became layered. Dozens of transmissions bleeding into each other. Different tones. Different panic levels. All speaking at once. The water is below the dirt. I can see lights on the ground. Don't step near the holes. Collins pulled his headset off. What is happening to the system? But I didn't answer, because I was hearing something else now. Beneath the noise, a pattern, repeating coordinates, over and over, always the same. North Ridge Lake, North Ridge Lake, North Ridge Lake. I grabbed the map inside the cruiser, put my finger on the basin, then on the radio frequency display. Every single transmission was locked to the same coordinates, not just nearby units. All units, even stations miles away. Everything was pointing here, like the entire county was suddenly orbiting this one empty place. Then a new voice came through Channel 7. Clear. Close. Deputy Harris. My chest tightened instantly. Harris, report. Silence. Then his voice answered slowly. I'm inside it. Collins looked at me sharply. That's not possible. He was on perimeter search. I leaned into the mic. Explain your location. A pause. Then Harris spoke again. I walked where the water used to be. Static flickered softly behind him. Then he added something worse. And it kept going down. I felt my throat tighten. Describe what you see. Harris didn't answer immediately. Then his voice came back quieter. I see the lake from underneath. A long silence followed. Even the radio chatter faded slightly. Like everyone was listening now. Harris continued. The boats are above me. The fish are above me. The ground is not solid. A pause. Then he whispered. It's layered. Collins leaned toward me. What does that mean? I didn't have an answer, because suddenly the radio shifted again. A new transmission forced itself into Channel 7. Emergency coordinates readout, beeping slowly. Then a voice. Automated. Cold. Descent detected. My blood ran cold instantly. Collins backed away from the console. That's not our system. But it kept going. Depth undefined. Another pause. Then, movement below surface confirmed. Harris came back on the channel. Panicked again. I'm not alone down here. The radio crackled violently. Then something new entered the frequency. Multiple voices again. But now they weren't random. They were responding to Harris. Like a conversation happening across layers. You follow the opening. You should not have looked down. We are still here. I slammed the mic. Who is this? Identify yourselves. No response. Instead, the coordinates started repeating again. Faster now. Like the system was counting down something we couldn't see. North Ridge Lake. North Ridge Lake. North Ridge Lake. Collins suddenly pointed at the monitor. The map, look at the basin. I looked, and my breath stopped. The display had changed. The lake wasn't empty anymore. It was filled again, but not with water, with something dark, not reflective, not liquid, just presence, like the system itself didn't know how to label it. Then Harris screamed, not over radio, over everything, every channel, every frequency. A single moment of pure terror broadcast across the entire county system. They're coming up. The transmission cut violently. Silence followed. Too sudden. Too complete. I grabbed the mic immediately. Harris, respond. Nothing. Collins whispered behind me. We lost him. But I wasn't looking at the radio anymore. I was looking at the map feed, because something was rising, slowly, from the center of the basin. Not water, not earth, something between both. A distortion spreading outward like a ripple through reality itself. The coordinates stopped repeating. Then all systems across Channel 7 went silent for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds of nothing. Then every radio in the county spoke at once. One voice. Harris. Calm again. Completely calm. I can see you now. Collins grabbed my arm hard. We need to shut everything down. Now! But I couldn't move, because Harris wasn't done speaking. I understand it now. A pause. Then softer. The lake isn't empty. The radio hissed. Then he finished. It was never full. The system flickered violently. All screens in the cruiser glitched at once. The coordinates disappeared, then reappeared, but changed. Now they pointed not to the basin, but directly to us. Colin stepped back. No, that's not right. The radio clicked softly one last time. Harris spoke again, and this time his voice was very close. Too close. Look outside. I didn't want to, but I did, and beyond the windshield, the empty basin was no longer empty. Something dark was rising through the cracked earth, slow, patient, like it had been waiting for us to finish listening. It happened just after sunrise. No warning, no build-up. One moment the basin was still cracked earth stretching into the distance. Empty, dead. The next moment, it started filling. At first, I thought it was fog, a low mist rising from the deepest part of the ground. But then the sound came, a slow rushing roar, like water breaking through something that had been holding it back for a very long time. Collins grabbed my arm. What is that? I didn't answer, because the ground itself was changing. The cracks in the lake bed began to darken, like ink spreading under dry skin. Then the first stream of water appeared, not flowing in from anywhere, rising up from the earth, straight upward, like the ground was breathing out something it had been holding for years. Within minutes, it wasn't just streams anymore. It was movement, whole sections of the basin collapsing upward into liquid. The lake was rebuilding itself. Backwards. Wrong. I stepped closer without thinking. The air turned colder with every step. And the sound, it wasn't normal water anymore. It sounded layered, like thousands of small voices trapped inside it, whispering just beneath the surface. Colin stayed behind me. I don't like this. This isn't how water works. But I already knew that, because the water wasn't falling in. It was rising out of something beneath us. The same something Harris had been describing. The system, the depth, the place that wasn't supposed to exist. Within 10 minutes, the basin was half full. Boats that had been sinking into mud earlier now floated upward slowly, not floating naturally, jerking upward like something beneath them was lifting them back into position. One of the submerged fish suddenly burst upward to the forming surface. Alive again, but wrong. Its body twisted midair before falling into the water that wasn't fully water yet. Collins backed away hard. Sheriff, call it in. Call it in now. I grabbed the radio. But before I could speak, dispatch came through on its own. Her voice sounded different, slower, careful. We see it. I looked up instantly, toward the ridge where the mobile command unit was parked. They were watching too. Then dispatch added something worse. Officer teams are reporting return from the shoreline. I frowned. Return. A pause. Then her voice dropped slightly. They went down during the night. They're coming back now. I turned toward the access road, and that's when I saw them. The first patrol vehicle, then another, rolling slowly toward the basin. But something was wrong immediately. They weren't driving normally. They were coasting, like no one was pressing the gas or brake. As the vehicle stopped near us, doors opened slowly. Deputy Harris stepped out of the first one. I froze instantly, not because he was alive, but because he was standing, and I had been told he was gone. His uniform was soaked, not with mud, with something darker, something that clung to him like it didn't want to let go. He didn't look at me. He looked past me, like he couldn't focus on anything in this world properly anymore. Behind him, more officers emerged from other vehicles, all of them silent, all of them shaking slightly. Colin stepped forward. Report. What did you see down there? No one answered. Then Harris finally spoke, but his voice was not steady. It was hollow. I saw it from underneath. My stomach tightened. That phrase again. From the previous transmissions. Harris lifted his head slightly, and for the first time, I saw his eyes. They weren't fully focused. They were distant, like he was still looking at something far away that none of us could see. It isn't water, he said softly. I stepped closer. Then what is it? Harris hesitated, like the answer hurt him to say. A surface. A cold silence spread through the group. Then another officer behind him spoke. His hands were shaking violently. We were inside it, under it, but it wasn't under anything. Collins whispered, "That doesn't make sense." The officer shook his head fast. "It does down there." He pointed toward the lake, which was now almost completely filled. The water had risen fast, too fast, and it wasn't settling. It was still moving, breathing, like something alive under a thin layer of understanding. Harris finally looked at me directly, and what I saw in his face made my chest tighten. Not fear anymore, something worse. Acceptance. "We heard you above us," he said. I felt my throat go dry. "What are you talking about?" Harris took a slow step forward. "When the lake was empty, we weren't gone. We were just underneath the wrong layer." Collins stepped between us. "This is trauma response. All of you need medical." But Harris shook his head sharply. "No." Then quieter. It spoke to us. The wind shifted suddenly across the basin. The water surface rippled, even though there was no wind direction strong enough to cause it. Then all the returning officers went still at the same time, like something had just focused its attention on them. Harris whispered again, "It's waking up properly now." I turned slowly toward the lake. The water had reached full depth now, but it didn't look like any lake I had ever seen. The surface wasn't reflective. It was flat, too flat, like glass stretched over something infinite beneath it. Then the first sound came from inside it, not bubbling, not current movement. A voice, soft, very soft. Too many voices inside one tone. Collins stepped back. No, I hear that too." The water spoke again. Not words exactly, more like meaning pressing against sound. And every officer standing near the shore reacted instantly. All of them stepped backward at once. Except Harris. He stepped forward, closer to the water. I grabbed his shoulder. "Stop." But he didn't stop. He just said quietly, "It's closer now than before." The water surface shifted slightly, and something beneath it moved upward, not breaking the surface, just pressing against it from below, like something large turning over in sleep. Then Harris said something I will never forget. "It remembers us now." The water suddenly rippled outward in a perfect circle. Too perfect, too controlled. Then it stopped again, completely still. And in that stillness, we saw it, not clearly, not fully, but enough. A shape beneath the surface. Vast, not swimming, not moving like an animal, just existing under the lake like it had always been there, waiting for the correct time to be remembered. One of the returning officers dropped to his knees immediately. I don't want to hear it again. Collins grabbed my arm tightly. "We need to evacuate the shoreline." But I couldn't move, because the water wasn't just in front of us anymore. It was reacting to us. Every officer standing there, every breath we took, every thought we tried to hold. The surface rippled again, and this time it didn't stop. Harris looked at me one last time and said softly, "It never refilled." Then he pointed at the lake. It was always here. The water suddenly went perfectly still, like something inside had finally opened its eyes and was now looking back at us. The first call came in at 2:14 a.m. No voice, just breathing, heavy, wet, like someone holding the phone too close to their mouth, without knowing they had already been answered. Then a whisper broke through. "Please?" I sat up straighter in the dispatch chair. The county was dead quiet tonight. No storms, no accidents, nothing. So I keyed the mic. 911, state your emergency. A long pause, then the same whisper again. "Please come back." And the line went dead. I stared at the console for a moment, waiting for it to be some kind of glitch. But the system didn't glitch like that. Not like a human voice trying not to cry. 10 minutes later, the same number called again. Same line, same silence at first. Then a faint tapping sound, like fingernails on metal. And finally a voice, weaker this time. "There's someone in the trailer." I looked at the address on the screen. Old Route 9, abandoned trailer park. Officially condemned 10 years ago. No power, no residents, no reason for a phone line to still be active there. I leaned into the mic. "Sir, Are you at the location right now? A pause. Then the answer came, shaky. I don't know where I am anymore. That's when I felt it. Something about his tone didn't sound like panic. It sounded like confusion that had lasted too long, like he had been lost for longer than the call itself. I dispatched Deputy Nolan immediately. Standard welfare check. Check the perimeter. Confirm no trespassers. Clear the area. Simple. At least it should have been. 30 minutes later, Nolan checked in. His voice came through comm at first. Approaching Old Route 9. Trailer park looks intact, but empty. Then a pause. Longer this time. Actually, scratch that. It doesn't look empty. It looks wrong. I frowned. Explain. Static crackled. Then Nolan continued slowly. There are trailers here, but they're not settled. They look like they've been moved. I leaned closer to the radio. Moved how? A long silence followed. Then he said it, like someone picked them up and set them down again wrong. That made my stomach tighten, because I knew that place. I had driven past it 100 times. It wasn't just abandoned. It was collapsed. Roofless structures. Rusted frames. Nothing standing properly. But Nolan's voice didn't match that image at all. He sounded like he was describing something still intact. Still occupied. Then his tone changed. Dispatch. I'm getting a signal from inside one of the trailers. I looked at the console. No active lines are registered there. I'm telling you, Nolan said, something is calling from inside. A pause. Then a faint click through the radio. And another voice joined the channel. Not Nolan. Not dispatch. A woman. Soft. Too soft. You came back. Nolan went silent for a second. Then he whispered, Who is this? No answer. Just the sound of static shifting into something almost like wind. The woman spoke again. Don't leave again. I felt my hands tighten around the console. Nolan, do not enter any structures. Repeat, do not enter. But he wasn't responding anymore. Just breathing. Slow. Controlled. Like he was standing still in front of something he couldn't decide to trust or fear. Then he said quietly, I see movement inside. The radio cut slightly. Then came a new sound. Knocking. From inside the transmission itself. Not his microphone. From the line. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. I stood up immediately. Nolan, respond. Nothing. Just static. Then the woman's voice returned again. Closer now. He's inside already. My skin went cold. I grabbed the mic. Deputy Nolan, confirm your status. A long pause. Then Nolan finally spoke. But his voice was different. Not panicked. Not even scared. Just detached. I think I'm inside one of them. I froze. What do you mean, one of them? He didn't answer immediately. Then he whispered something that made my stomach drop. The trailer is bigger inside. Static surged violently through the channel. Then the line went dead. I looked at the console. No signal. No movement. Just silence stretching too long. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I was about to send backup when every radio in the station flickered at once. Not just Nolan's channel. All of them. And the same voice came through every speaker. The woman again. But now she sounded like she was standing right behind me. Don't let him leave. I turned around instantly. Empty room. But the speakers kept going. He already left once. Then Nolan's voice broke through again. But weaker. Far away. I see more of them now. I grabbed the mic again. Deputy Nolan, report location. A pause. Then he said something that didn't make sense. I think I'm in the trailer park still. I looked at the map. That's impossible. You're not moving. Silence. Then Nolan whispered, I think the park is moving around me. That made no sense. Not in any physical way. But something in his voice made me believe he believed it. Then I heard something else. Background noise. Not wind. Not static. Footsteps. Inside the transmission. Slow. Metallic. Like someone walking on hollow floors. Then Nolan spoke again. Faster this time. I'm not alone in here. A pause. Then, they're sitting in the other trailers. The woman's voice returned immediately after him. Calm. Comforting in the worst possible way. You were always here. Nolan's breathing changed, like something had just been placed too close to him. Then he whispered, "No." I left. The radio surged violently, and for a moment, I heard something else under the noise. Doors opening, one by one, slowly, dozens of them, then silence. I leaned forward, heart pounding. "Nolan?" Nothing. Then, finally, his voice returned one last time, barely audible. I can see my cruiser outside. I felt my throat tighten. "That means you're outside. Get out now." A pause. Then Nolan said something that froze me completely. "I am outside." Another pause. Then softer. "But I'm also still inside." The transmission broke into static again. But this time it didn't end. It lingered, like something waiting for a signal. Then the woman spoke one final time. "Close. Too close. He always comes back to the wrong place." The radio cut out. All channels went silent at once. I stood there for a moment, staring at the dead console. Then dispatch lights blinked again. Same caller ID. Same trailer park number. Incoming call. I hesitated, then answered, and the first thing I heard was knocking from inside the line, followed by Nolan's voice. Calm, but not human anymore. "Dispatch, I think I'm back." The first thing I noticed wasn't the report. It was a database refusing to update. I entered the missing trailer family's case file like I always do. Standard verification. House number, last known call, status. Cold case, closed years ago. But the system blinked, then refreshed, and the file changed, not to close, to active resident. I stared at the screen. That doesn't happen. Not in our system. I hit refresh again. Same result. Active. Current occupants. My stomach tightened a little, but I told myself it was just corrupted records. Old county server glitches. Happens sometimes after storm backups. I opened the radio log next. That's when things got worse. Every call from that address, every single one, was still marked as live. Even calls I personally remember closing. Even the ones where officers confirmed the structure was empty. I leaned back in my chair. Something felt off in the way the data was arranged. Like it wasn't being stored. Like it was being remembered. Then the dispatcher phone rang. One sharp ring. I answered immediately. "Dispatch." A woman's voice came through. Soft, calm, like she was calling from another room instead of another world. "We need assistance at the trailer." I froze. "What trailer?" A pause. Then she gave the address. The same one. Old Route 9. But this time, she didn't sound confused. She sounded patient, like she had called before. Many times. I checked the log again while she spoke. There were no active calls. Nothing incoming. Yet her voice continued in my ear. "My husband is still inside. He hasn't come out yet." I swallowed. "Ma'am, I show no active residents at that location." A pause. Then she said something that made my skin tighten. "We never left." I looked at the screen again. The family file had changed. Now it showed 5 residents. Names I recognized from the original case. But something was wrong, because I remembered their case. They didn't disappear. They were confirmed gone, found months later in another county. That was the official report. I remembered reading it. I remembered signing off on it. But the system didn't agree. The woman's voice came again. "I think the power is flickering again." A background sound came through the line. Not static. Something softer, like wind moving through thin metal walls. Then another voice appeared faintly in the background. A child. "Mom, the lights are doing again." I sat up straight. "Ma'am, who is with you right now?" She hesitated, then answered gently. "My family." I looked at the roster again. 5 names, all marked active, all currently inside residence. My hands went cold, because I knew that trailer. There was nothing there, just an empty shell on a dead road. No electricity, no service lines, no reason for any voice to be coming from it. But I still asked, "Are you able to exit the structure?" A long pause. Then the woman said something that didn't make sense. We tried that before. My throat tightened. What do you mean before? Silence. Then the radio on my desk clicked on by itself. Channel 7. The emergency frequency. It wasn't supposed to activate unless manually switched. A second later, a different voice came through. Not the woman. A man. Calm. Too calm. Dispatch, we're still inside. I froze. That voice was not in any current log, but I recognized it anyway. It matched the husband's file. Deceased. Official cause, exposure during missing person search. But here he was, speaking clearly, like nothing had ever happened. The woman came back on the line immediately after him. We keep calling, but no one comes all the way in. My pulse rose slightly. What do you mean all the way in? She didn't answer directly. Instead, I heard movement. Footsteps on wooden floorboards. Slow, careful. Then the child again. Closer this time. Mom says the door is open, but it's not the same door. I felt something shift in my chest. Listen to me, I said, leaning forward. What do you see outside? A pause. Then the woman answered. We see the road, but it's wrong. My grip tightened on the receiver. Wrong how? Another pause. Then the man spoke again. Because it doesn't lead anywhere anymore. The line went quiet for a moment. No static. No background noise. Just silence like the world was holding its breath. Then the woman whispered something softer. We think the outside changed. I stood up slowly. Walked toward the window of the dispatch center. The road outside looked normal. Empty. Flat. Familiar. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was only seeing what I was allowed to see. The radio crackled again. Channel 7. Now multiple voices overlapping. Not shouting. Not panicking. Just speaking at once. Like they had all learned to talk through each other. We are still here. We are still inside. The outside is not coming. I turned the volume down slightly, but it didn't help. The voices didn't feel like sound anymore. They felt like repetition, like something being played back too many times. I checked the incident file again. The family still listed as active, still residents, still inside the trailer. But that trailer had been condemned years ago. No utilities, no access, no reason for occupancy. And yet, the system insisted otherwise. Then the dispatcher phone rang again. I hesitated before answering this time. Something inside me already knew I shouldn't, but I picked it up anyway. Dispatch. The woman's voice returned. Closer, almost relieved. You're still there. I didn't answer. She continued. We thought you stopped answering. I swallowed. Ma'am, I need you to confirm your location again. A pause. Then she said softly, we are at home. My stomach dropped slightly. That location is abandoned. No, she replied gently. It just hasn't finished becoming what it is yet. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. What does that mean? She didn't answer. Instead, I heard something in the background. A door opening. Slow, with creaking. Then the child again, whispering. Mom, the radio is talking about us again. I looked at the console. Channel 7 was still open, but now something new was coming through it. A second transmission underneath theirs. Like another version of the same conversation, playing slightly out of sync. And in that overlap, I heard something I wasn't supposed to hear. My own voice, from the past logs, reading their case closure report. But it was wrong, because in the recording, I was saying, no survivors confirmed. I froze, because I remembered saying that. But I also remembered something else. A final note I never filed. A note that never made it into the system. Something I wrote after the investigation. Something I erased, or thought I erased. But now it was back, displayed on my screen in plain text. Family still inside structure at time of closure. My hands went numb. That was impossible. That note didn't exist anymore. But the radio confirmed it again. All channels overlapping now. The woman's voice breaking through everything else. Please don't close the file again. And in that moment, I realized something I didn't want to accept. The system wasn't corrupted. It was correcting itself. And whatever was inside that trailer was still being counted as present, still being recorded, still being updated, still waiting for someone to acknowledge. It never stopped existing. The dispatcher phone rang one more time, and before I even answered, I already knew what I would hear. So I picked it up slowly, and the woman whispered, "We can hear you looking at us." The storm hit before I could decide if I even believed what I was doing. Rain slammed the windshield in thick sheets as I parked near Old Route 9. The trailer sat there like it always had. Wrong. Empty. Still. But the radio didn't stop talking about it, even after I shut off. I stood outside for a moment, watching the place through the rain. Something about it felt closer than before, like it had moved toward me while I was driving. The door was open. I didn't remember it being open during the last report. That was the first thing that felt off. The second thing was the sound, not the storm. Something under it, a slow, steady breath. I stepped out of the cruiser anyway. My boots sank slightly into the mud as I walked closer. The trailer didn't look different, but it felt different, like it was waiting for me to notice something I was supposed to miss. The porch creaked under my weight. That's when the breathing stopped. Complete silence, like it had noticed me back. I pushed the door open. It didn't resist. Inside, it smelled like wet wood and old air that hadn't been moved in years. But the strange part was the warmth. It wasn't cold like an abandoned place should be after a storm. It felt occupied. I stepped in slowly. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded too loud inside the trailer, like it didn't belong there. No answer, but I heard something anyway. A breath, right behind the wall to my left. I froze. Listened again. Another breath. Slow, controlled, close. I pressed my hand against the wall. Solid. No gaps. No vents. No space where anything could fit. Still, the breathing continued. I moved forward carefully, flashlight cutting to the dim interior. The living room was empty. Furniture still there, but covered in dust and something darker underneath it, like the dust had been disturbed recently. That thought made my stomach tighten. I checked the kitchen next. Same thing. Still, silent, except for that breathing sound, following me now, not from one place, from several. Behind me, to my right, inside the walls themselves. I stopped in the middle of the hallway. "Hello," I said again, quieter this time. The answer came instantly, a breath directly behind my head. I spun around. Nothing, only the narrow hallway stretching back into darkness. But I knew I heard it. I stepped forward again. The breathing didn't stop this time. It grew, layered, like more than one person was inside the walls, each trying not to be heard, but failing. I pressed my ear to the first bedroom door. Nothing at first. Then, inhale, exhale, right through the wood. I stepped back fast. "No!" I whispered. This wasn't possible. There were no crawl spaces in this trailer. I knew that from the original inspection report. It was a single-layer structure. No hidden compartments. No attic access. Nothing. But the breathing didn't care what the report said. It was still there. I opened the bedroom door. The room was empty. Bed, dresser, broken lamp. But the breathing didn't come from the room. It came from the walls around it. All four sides. Like the room itself was inhaling. I backed out slowly. My radio crackled in my pocket. I hadn't turned it back on, but it was on anyway. A voice came through. Soft, familiar. The woman from before. "We told you it wasn't empty." I froze. "Where are you?" I said automatically. A pause. Then she answered. "Inside." My grip tightened on the flashlight. "No," I said. "There's no one inside the structure." A soft laugh came through the radio. Not mocking, just tired. "You keep saying that," she replied. The breathing around me shifted, like it was reacting to her voice. I stepped into the hallway again. "I need you to confirm your location," I said. The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, I heard movement, like she was walking. Then a child's voice, faint. "Mom says the walls are getting closer." I looked at the walls again. They hadn't moved, but the air felt tighter now. Thicker, like the space inside the trailer, was shrinking slowly around me. "That's not possible," I said quietly. The woman answered, "It's been like that since the first call." My mind went back. The first call, the breathing, the whisper asking me to come back. I hadn't thought about that phrase until now. Come back, not come here. Come back. I moved toward the next room. The bathroom, door slightly open. I pushed it gently. Inside, the mirror was fogged over. Fresh fog, not old, not natural. Someone had just breathed on it. I stepped closer, and the fog shifted. Not wiped, not erased. Moved, like something behind the mirror had leaned closer. I raised the flashlight. The reflection showed me. Only me, at first. Then the fog thickened again, and another shape appeared behind my reflection, not fully formed, just the outline of a face pressed too close to the glass. I stepped back immediately. The radio cracked again. The man's voice this time. "Calm, too calm. You're walking to the wrong version of the house." I swallowed hard. What does that mean? A pause. Then, there are more than walls here. The breathing outside the bathroom got louder, closer. Now it wasn't separate sounds anymore. It was synchronized, all of it inhaling at once. I stepped out fast, back into the hallway, and that's when I saw it. The hallway was longer than it should have been. I stopped immediately, blinking. It wasn't possible. The trailer wasn't big enough for this distance, but the hallway stretched further now. Doors I didn't remember, more than before, at least 5, all slightly open, and every single one was breathing. I stood still, trying to rationalize it, trying to force my brain to correct the image, but nothing changed. The hallway stayed wrong. The radio went silent for a moment. Then the woman spoke again, closer than before. "You're in it now." I shook my head. "No, I'm outside." A pause. Then she said softly, "No, you're inside what we left behind." The lights flickered once. Not electricity. Something else. Like the air itself blinking. And suddenly I wasn't sure if I was standing in the same trailer anymore, because the walls felt thinner, like paper now. And behind them, there were too many breaths to count. All waiting, all aware, and one of them was right next to my ear. Mile marker 11 was where the radio stopped acting normal. At first, it was just another quiet desert run, long stretch of empty highway, heat still rising off the asphalt even after sunset. I was alone in the cruiser, evidence sealed in the back, nothing unusual about the shift. Then dispatch came through. Unit 4 Delta, confirmed status. I reached for the mic. Unit 4 Delta en route. Mile marker 10 approaching. Standard check-in. Routine. But before dispatch could reply, another voice cut in. Not static. Not overlap. A clean voice. "Male. Calm. Too calm for highway traffic. Don't pass mile marker 11. I frowned. I glanced at the radio like it had spoken wrong on purpose. Repeat last transmission? I said. Dispatch came back instantly. Unit 4 Delta, negative traffic advisory. No units assigned that channel. I slowed the cruiser slightly. The desert ahead looked normal. Empty road. No signs. No movement. Just heat haze and darkness swallowing the horizon. Then the voice came again. Closer this time. Turn around while you still remember doing it. My grip tightened on the wheel. That wasn't a warning. It sounded like advice from someone who had already made a mistake and was trying to undo it. Dispatch, I got interference on channel, I said. No answer for a second. Then dispatch replied slower than usual. We show clear frequency. But I heard it too, a faint echo under their words, like something else was talking through them. I passed mile marker 10. The sign was normal, metal pole, reflective numbers. But something about it felt off, like it was older than the road around it, like it had been standing there longer than it should exist. And then I saw mile marker 11 ahead. It didn't look different at first. Same sign, same reflective paint, but the air around it felt heavier, thicker, like the road was holding its breath. The radio clicked again. No static, just the same voice. Calm, patient, you're almost here. I hit the transmit button. Identify yourself. A pause. Then the voice answered, "You already passed me once." That made my stomach tighten. I checked my rearview mirror. Empty road behind me. No headlights. No movement. Just darkness stretching back into nothing. "Dispatch!" I said, sharper now. "I need confirmation on active units near mile marker 11. Silence. Then dispatch replied, "We have no units assigned past mile marker 9. I looked forward again. The sign was closer now. Too close. Like I had been approaching it longer than I should have. My speed hadn't changed. But the distance felt wrong. The radio crackled. And for half a second, I heard something else underneath everything. My own voice. But not current. Older. Saying something I didn't remember saying. Unit returning from mile marker 11. No contact with structure confirmed. I blinked hard. "What the hell?" I muttered. The voice on the radio came back immediately. Quieter now. Nothing. But the breathing didn't care what the report said. It was still there. I opened the bedroom door. The room was empty. Bed. Dresser. Broken lamp. But the breathing didn't come from the room. It came from the walls around it. All four sides. Like the room itself was inhaling. I backed out slowly. My radio crackled in my pocket. I hadn't turned it back on, but it was on anyway. A voice came through. Soft. Familiar. The woman from before. "We told you it wasn't empty." I froze. "Where are you?" I said automatically. A pause. Then she answered. "Inside." My grip tightened on the flashlight. "No," I said. "There's no one inside the structure." A soft laugh came through the radio. Not mocking. Just tired. "You keep saying that," she replied. The breathing around me shifted, like it was reacting to her voice. I stepped into the hallway again. "I need you to confirm your location," I said. The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, I heard movement, like she was walking. Then a child's voice, faint. "Mom says the walls are getting closer." I looked at the walls again. They hadn't moved, but the air felt tighter now. Thicker, like the space inside the trailer was shrinking slowly around me. "That's not possible," I said quietly. The woman answered, "It's been like that since the first call." My mind went back. The first call, the breathing, the whisper asking me to come back. I hadn't thought about that phrase until now. Come back, not come here. Come back. I moved toward the next room. The bathroom, door slightly open. I pushed it gently. Inside, the mirror was fogged over. Fresh fog, not old, not natural. Someone had just breathed on it. I stepped closer, and the fog shifted. Not wiped, not erased. Moved, like something behind the mirror had leaned closer. I raised the flashlight. The reflection showed me. Only me, at first. Then the fog thickened again, and another shape appeared behind my reflection, not fully formed. Just the outline of a face pressed too close to the glass. I stepped back immediately. The radio cracked again. The man's voice this time. "Calm. Too calm. You're walking to the wrong version of the house." I swallowed hard. What does that mean? A pause. Then, "There are more than walls here." The breathing outside the bathroom got louder, closer. Now it wasn't separate sounds anymore. It was synchronized, all of it inhaling at once. I stepped out fast, back into the hallway, and that's when I saw it. The hallway was longer than it should have been. I stopped immediately, blinking. It wasn't possible. The trailer wasn't big enough for this distance. But the hallway stretched further now. Doors I didn't remember. More than before. At least 5. All slightly open. And every single one was breathing. I stood still, trying to rationalize it. Trying to force my brain to correct the image. But nothing changed. The hallway stayed wrong. The radio went silent for a moment. Then the woman spoke again. Closer than before. "You're in it now." I shook my head. "No. I'm outside." A pause. Then she said softly, "No, you're inside what we left behind." The lights flickered once. Not electricity. Something else. Like the air itself blinking. And suddenly I wasn't sure if I was standing in the same trailer anymore. Because the walls felt thinner. Like paper now. And behind them, There were too many breaths to count, all waiting, all aware, and one of them was right next to my ear. Mile marker 11 was where the radio stopped acting normal. At first, it was just another quiet desert run, long stretch of empty highway. Heat still rising off the asphalt even after sunset. I was alone in the cruiser, evidence sealed in the back. Nothing unusual about the shift. Then dispatch came through. Unit 4 Delta, confirmed status. I reached for the mic. Unit 4 Delta en route. Mile marker 10 approaching. Standard check-in. Routine. But before dispatch could reply, another voice cut in. Not static. Not overlap. A clean voice. Male. Calm. Too calm for highway traffic. Don't pass mile marker 11. I frowned. I glanced at the radio like it had spoken wrong on purpose. Repeat last transmission? I said. Dispatch came back instantly. Unit 4 Delta, negative traffic advisory. No units assigned that channel. I slowed the cruiser slightly. The desert ahead looked normal. Empty road. No signs. No movement. Just heat haze and darkness swallowing the horizon. Then the voice came again. Closer this time. Turn around while you still remember doing it. My grip tightened on the wheel. That wasn't a warning. It sounded like advice from someone who had already made a mistake and was trying to undo it. Dispatch, I got interference on channel, I said. No answer for a second. Then dispatch replied slower than usual. We show clear frequency. But I heard it too, a faint echo under their words, like something else was talking through them. I passed mile marker 10. The sign was normal, metal pole, reflective numbers. But something about it felt off, like it was older than the road around it, like it had been standing there longer than it should exist. And then I saw mile marker 11 ahead. It didn't look different at first. Same sign, same reflective paint, but the air around it felt heavier, thicker, like the road was holding its breath. The radio clicked again. No static, just the same voice. Calm, patient, you're almost here. I hit the transmit button. Identify yourself. A pause. Then the voice answered. You already passed me once. That made my stomach tighten. I checked my rear view mirror. Empty road behind me. No headlights. No movement. Just darkness stretching back into nothing. Dispatch! I said, sharper now. I need confirmation on active units near mile marker 11. Silence. Then dispatch replied. We have no units assigned past mile marker 9. I looked forward again. The sign was closer now. Too close. Like I had been approaching it longer than I should have. My speed hadn't changed. But the distance felt wrong. The radio crackled. And for half a second, I heard something else underneath everything. My own voice. But not current. Older. Saying something I didn't remember saying. Unit returning from mile marker 11. No contact with structure confirmed. I blinked hard. What the hell, I muttered. The voice on the radio came back immediately. Quieter now. You remember now. I slowed the cruiser. The road ahead didn't feel like distance anymore. It felt like repetition. Like I had already driven this stretch before and just didn't notice it. I passed mile marker 11. Or I think I did. Because nothing changed. No shift in scenery. No signal loss. No transition. Just continuation. The same road. The same desert. The same sign again ahead of me. My breath tightened. That's not possible, I said out loud. The radio responded instantly. It is if you stop measuring correctly. I looked down at the odometer. It flickered, just for a second, then stabilized. But the number didn't feel right. I checked the rearview mirror again. The sign was behind me now, but also ahead, both directions. Same marker, mile marker 11, duplicated, or not duplicated, repeated. The radio hissed softly. Then the voice returned. You were supposed to turn around the first time. My throat went dry. Who are you? I said again. A pause. Then the answer came, calm as ever. Someone who already didn't. The wind outside picked up slightly, but only around the cruiser, not the desert, just my vehicle, like I had driven into a pocket of air that didn't belong to the rest of the world. I checked dispatch again. Unit 4, Delta, do you read? I said, a delay. Then dispatch replied, we read you, but your location is inconsistent. I frowned. Inconsistent how? Another pause. Then, you are reporting mile marker 11 in 2 places at once. I went cold. That's not possible. But before dispatch could respond, the radio switched channels on its own. Channel locked. No input accepted. And the voice came back. Closer. Almost inside the cab now. You didn't stop the first time. My hands tightened on the wheel. What first time? Silence. Then the radio played something. Not words. A recording. Engine noise. Highway wind. My own breathing. And then my own voice again. Older. Tired. Unit 4 Delta lost visual reference past mile marker 11. Repeat. Lost visual reference. I felt my chest tighten. That wasn't recent. That wasn't this shift. But I recognized it. Or at least, part of me did. The recording cut off. And the voice returned. You kept driving. I looked forward again. The sign was gone. No longer visible. Just empty road ahead. But I didn't trust that, because I could still feel it behind me, like it hadn't left. I slowed the cruiser completely, put it in neutral, listened. Nothing outside. No wind. No insects. Just silence that felt too organized. Then the radio spoke one last time. Soft. Almost gentle. You're not passing it anymore. I swallowed. What am I doing then? A pause. Then the answer came. You're returning through it. The dashboard lights flickered once. Not electrical failure. Something more like hesitation. Like the vehicle itself wasn't sure which direction time was supposed to move. I looked in the mirror again and saw headlights behind me. But they weren't mine. And they weren't approaching. They were just there, waiting, as if they had always been there. The radio clicked off. No static. No signal. Just dead silence. Then, very softly, right before everything went quiet again, the voice said, next time, don't listen the first time. And the highway didn't feel like a road anymore. It felt like a loop that had already decided I wasn't allowed to leave it. It started as just one set of headlights. Far behind me on Highway 17, cutting through the desert like a thin strip of black glass. At first, I didn't care. Out here, you always get someone behind you. Truckers, night drivers, people trying to outrun sleep, or something worse. But this one didn't feel normal. It stayed at the same distance for almost an hour. Too steady, too patient. I kept my eyes on the road. One hand on the wheel, the other near the radio mic where the evidence box sat locked in the back. Routine job. Simple transport run. That's what I told myself. Then the radio crackled. Unit 14 confirmed position. Dispatch sounded normal. Too normal. Like nothing was wrong in the world. I reached for the mic. Unit 14, mile marker 11. Moving steady. Silence came back. Then something else slipped into the channel. Not dispatch. A voice. Low. Flat. Almost like it was speaking through water. Don't let it see you, stop. I froze for half a second. My foot eased off the gas without me realizing. The desert wind hit the truck harder, like it noticed I was listening. Dispatch. I said, nothing. Just static. Behind me. The headlights were still there. Closer now. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. Because I hadn't slowed down. I checked the mirror again. 2 white points in the dark. No shape yet. Just light, but they were tighter than before. Like they were leaning forward. Trying to catch up without moving faster. I told myself it was fatigue. Long shift. Empty road. Mind playing tricks. Then the radio clicked again. Not dispatch this time. The same voice. You're already on mile marker 11. My stomach tightened. Because I hadn't said the mile marker out loud. Not even to dispatch. I pressed the mic again. Dispatch, do you copy? Only static answered. The headlights behind me flickered. Just once. Like blinking. I felt it in my chest before my brain caught up. That wasn't a car. Or at least not a normal one. I pushed the accelerator down. The engine responded slow. Like it was thinking about it. The desert stretched wider. Empty. Endless. No signs. No exits. Just black road and sand that looked like it had never been touched. But the light stayed, and now they were closer. That's when I first noticed something else. Every time I checked the mirror, the road behind looked slightly different, like it wasn't staying still, like it was remembering itself wrong. I blinked hard, tried to reset my vision, get it together. I muttered, then the radio screamed. Not loud, not sharp, just full, every frequency at once. And inside it, layered under static and broken signal, I heard it again. Don't stop. This time, it sounded like more than one voice, like several people saying it at different distances. Near, far, underground. I gripped the wheel tighter. The headlights behind me flickered again, and for half a second, I saw something impossible. A second pair of lights, off to the side of the road, standing still, not moving, just watching. I slammed my eyes forward. When I looked back again, they were gone. Only the original headlights remained. But now they were even closer. Too close. My pulse started to rise in a way I didn't like. Not fast panic. Slow pressure. Like something heavy settling in my chest. I tried dispatch again. Unit 14 to dispatch. I'm getting interference on channel. Silence. Then a soft voice came through, but not from the radio. From inside the cab. You should have stayed off mile marker 11. I snapped my head around. Empty passenger seat. Empty back seat. But the voice felt close, like someone had leaned into my ear and then stepped away. The headlights behind me surged forward. No engine sound. No wind rush. Just sudden distance closing like time skipped. I floored the gas. The truck shook. The desert blurred. But the lights kept pace. That's when I realized something that made my hands go cold. They weren't following me. They were matching me. Perfectly. Every speed change. Every hesitation. Every breath I took. Like they already knew what I was going to do before I did it. I tried something stupid. I slowed down. Immediately, they slowed too. I sped up. They did the same. No delay. No variation. Like a reflection that had learned to think. My throat went dry. What the hell are you? I whispered. The radio answered. Not with words this time. With a sound. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Close. Right behind me. I jerked my mirror up. Nothing. Just road. Just headlights. But now I couldn't tell if they were behind me or inside the reflection of me. The desert started feeling wrong after that. Not visually. Not at first. Just emotionally. Like the space around the road had thinned. Like it was easy to fall out of it. The mile markers stopped making sense. 11, then 11 again, then something that looked like 11 but wasn't fully formed. I blinked at it twice. It didn't stabilize. That's when I saw the first real break in the pattern. A sign, bent, half buried in sand. Mile 11, but scratched underneath it, in deep lines like claw marks. Do not stop here. My foot twitched on the brake without permission. The headlights behind me surged closer instantly. I jerked forward again, and they matched me, always matching. I felt trapped in a loop I didn't understand yet, like the road wasn't going forward anymore, just repeating. The radio crackled again, this time clearer, a different voice. Mine, but older, more tired. If you hear me, don't trust the lights. I went cold, because I recognized that voice. It sounded like me, but not this moment me. Like something ahead had already lived this. The headlights behind me flickered again, and for a split second, I saw something inside them. Not a car, not metal, just shapes. Human shapes pressed together, facing forward, like passengers who couldn't turn their heads. I slammed the radio mic. Dispatch! I need backup on mile mark 11. Something is... The transmission cut. Dead silence. No static this time. Just absence. The desert outside the window felt wider now, like it was opening, stretching, waiting. And then I saw it. Up ahead, another set of headlights. Facing me, stopped on the road. Perfectly centered. My stomach dropped, because there was no way around them. No shoulder. No turnoff. No exit. Just two beams of light waiting in the middle of the highway, like an answer I didn't want. Behind me, my follower slowed. Matching again. Waiting. I was trapped between two things that didn't behave like vehicles anymore. My hand hovered over the mic, but I didn't press it because I already knew what would answer. Instead, I whispered to myself, barely able to hear my own voice. This isn't a road. The headlights in front of me flickered, and for the first time, they moved, not forward, sideways, like they were stepping out of alignment with reality. The radio came alive one last time before everything changed. A chorus of voices, all saying the same thing. Soft, close, patient. You already passed mile marker 11. And then the lights behind me stopped matching. For the first time, they didn't follow. They waited, like they knew I couldn't turn back anymore. And the road ahead stopped looking like a road at all. The moment I hit the mic, I already knew something was wrong. Not from static this time. From how clean the channel sounded. Too clean, like the desert, the road, the sky. Everything had stepped out of the way just so the radio could speak clearly. Dispatched, you copy? I said again, my voice tighter than I wanted it to be. A second passed. Then dispatch answered. Unit 14, we read you. Go ahead. I almost exhaled. Almost. But then the voice came through underneath theirs. Layered. Close. Familiar. Unit 14 is compromised. I froze, because that second voice wasn't dispatch. It was me. Exactly me. Same tone. Same pacing. Same slight roughness in the throat from too many night shifts and too much dust in the air. I looked at the radio like it had grown teeth. Dispatch. I said slowly. Confirm last transmission. Negative. Dispatch replied. We only received your check-in from mile marker 11. You're still en route. Report status. Still en route. That should have made sense. But it didn't, because I wasn't moving like normal anymore. The road outside the windshield felt stretched, like distance wasn't honest here. And the headlights behind me, they were gone. Just empty dark. No follow. No reflection. Like they had stepped out of the story and were now watching from somewhere else. The radio clicked again. My voice came back. Calm. Too calm. Unit 14 will not complete transport. I felt my grip tighten on the wheel. So hard my fingers hurt. I leaned into the mic. Who is this? A pause. Then my voice answered again. Not mocking. Not distorted. Just certain. You already stopped at mile marker 11. My stomach dropped because that wasn't a threat. It sounded like a record. Like something already written down. I glanced at the mirror again. Empty road. But the feeling of being watched didn't leave. It got worse. Like whatever was behind me didn't need light anymore. Dispatch came back in, confused now. Unit 14, repeat last. Did you say mile marker 11? You are past that location. Confirm your current position. I opened my mouth, then stopped, because I didn't know the answer anymore. The road signs weren't behaving right. Distances were folding in on themselves. And every time I tried to remember how long I'd been driving, my mind hit something soft, like it refused to hold a number. The radio crackled again. My voice again, but different this time. Not calm, tired, like it had been talking for hours already. Unit 14 has sustained fatal impact at mile marker 11. I felt my chest tighten. That word didn't belong in a routine patrol. Fatal. Impact. Those weren't supposed to exist in my timeline. Dispatch went silent for half a second, then came back sharper. Say again? Unit 14, confirm your status immediately. My hand hovered over the mic, but I didn't speak, because I was listening now, not just to the radio, to the silence underneath it. And in that silence, I realized something I didn't want to accept. There were two versions of me on this channel. One speaking, one reporting, one alive, one already finished. The radio shifted again. Now it wasn't just my voice. It was layered conversation, like two transmissions playing at once. The other me spoke first. Subject expired on impact. Evidence secured in transport unit. No further response from driver. My throat went dry. I looked at the back of the truck without turning fully. The evidence box, still locked, still there, still supposed to be nothing more than sealed metal and paperwork. Dispatch responded through static, unsure. Unit 14, clarify. What evidence? And then my voice answered again. Calm again, patient again. The contents from mile marker 11. My foot lifted slightly off the accelerator without me noticing. The truck slowed, and the moment it did, the desert outside seemed to lean closer, like it preferred me when I wasn't moving. I pressed the mic hard. Dispatch, I'm alone on this road. There is no incident at mile marker 11. Silence. Then my voice came back. Soft, almost disappointed. You were alone before the stop. That hit something in me I didn't understand yet. Not fear, something worse. Recognition. Because part of me agreed. The radio shifted again. Now dispatch wasn't even trying to control the channel. They were just listening. And what they were hearing wasn't mine anymore. It was a report, written in real time. My voice, reading it out like it had already been filed. Officer 14 deviated from route after mile marker 11. I shook my head. No, that didn't happen. But the truck felt like it disagreed. The steering wheel was slightly off-center now, like the road itself had adjusted to match the report instead of the other way around. My voice continued. Subject reported auditory interference prior to loss of control. I swallowed hard, because I had heard it, the voice on the radio, the warning, the instructions, don't stop, don't trust the lights. And now I was wondering something I didn't want to think about. Was that warning trying to help me, or complete the report? Dispatch finally spoke again, voice lower now. Unit 14, are you say you're injured? I opened my mouth, but the answer came from the radio before I could. Yes. My voice, immediate, certain, like it had been waiting for that question. I gripped the wheel tighter. That's not me, but even saying it felt wrong now, because my voice was still there, still talking, still reporting. Subject shows signs of cognitive disassociation, possible trauma response. I laughed once, short and dry. Trauma response? From what? The radio answered immediately, and this time, it wasn't just my voice. It was memory. You saw the other unit at mile marker 11. I froze, because I did. I remembered headlights that weren't stable, a road that wasn't fixed, a feeling that I was being matched by something that shouldn't understand movement. But I hadn't said that part out loud. Not once. Dispatch came in again, urgent now. Unit 14, we are dispatching backup to your last confirmed position. My voice answered over them again. Backup will arrive after confirmation of death. My hands went cold. That wasn't prediction. It was procedure, like the system already knew how this ended. And then something changed outside the windshield. The road ahead stopped stretching. It started repeating. The same patch of asphalt. The same faded white line. The same slight bend in the desert horizon. Looping. I blinked hard. It didn't fix itself. My voice on the radio softened, almost like it was speaking directly to me now. You are still transmitting because the event is incomplete. I whispered without thinking. What event? A pause. Then, impact at mile marker 11. The words didn't feel like words anymore. They felt like pressure, like they were trying to push something into place that hadn't fully happened yet. Dispatch's voice came through one last time, shaky now. Unit 14, we are receiving conflicting reports. Are you alive? I opened my mouth. I wanted to say yes. I really did, but my voice answered first again. And this time, it was quieter than before. No. The words settled in the cab like dust. Everything stopped for a second. Even the road noise. Even the wind. Even my own breathing. Just silence. Then the radio clicked once more. And for the first time, my voice stopped talking. Instead, dispatch spoke softly, almost carefully. Report finalized. The words didn't feel like communication. They felt like closure. I looked at my hands. Still on the wheel. Still moving. Still here. But something about the truck felt different now. Like it wasn't transporting evidence anymore. like it was carrying a story that had already been written and just needed distance to finish playing out. And somewhere behind that silence on the radio, I could still hear my own voice, repeating the last line. Not angry, not afraid, just final. No response from Unit 14. And for the first time since mile marker 11, I wasn't sure if I was the one listening anymore. I shouldn't have opened that box. Not after all these years. But the label on it was still clear, even under the dust. Faded ink. Old county seal. Evidence Locker 3B. And underneath it, written in a different hand, shaky, rushed, like whoever wrote it didn't want to stay long in the same room. Archive audio. Do not replay without logging. That should have been enough to leave it alone. It wasn't. The room smelled like old paper and metal that had forgotten what clean air felt like. Retired storage. Forgotten cases. Things the county doesn't talk about anymore. I wasn't supposed to be down there. Technically, I wasn't even supposed to have access. But old keys don't forget their shape. The lock clicked open too easily. That was the first warning. Inside the box were tapes. Dozens of them. All labeled the same way. White stickers. Black marker. Call log unidentified. And one in the middle, different. Tape 44B. That one had been crossed out once. Then uncrossed. Then written again, darker. Like someone couldn't decide if it should exist. I picked it up without thinking. Cold plastic. Slight stickiness on the edges like it had been handled too many times. My thumb ran over the label. And for a second, I thought I heard something. Not from the room. From inside the tape. A voice half-formed. Don't play. I stopped. Just stood there, breathing slow, trying to decide if I imagined it. The old part of my brain, the part that user run calls at 3 a.m. and trust nothing, told me to put it back. But the other part, the tired part, the part that had been retired too early and too quietly, wanted answers. I carried the tape upstairs. My office wasn't much anymore. Just a desk, an old radio I never turned on, and a window that looked out a road I didn't patrol anymore. The cassette player still worked. Barely. I slid tape 44B in. The machine ate it with a sound like it didn't want to, then silence, then static, then a voice. Dispatch, but older, strained. Unit response log, mile marker cases, playback initiated. I leaned closer, without meaning to. The tape wasn't clean. It was broken in places. Whole sections, missing like someone had scraped memory off it with a knife. Then a call came through. A man's voice. Panicked. Dispatch, do you copy? There's something wrong with the road. Static cut him off. Then another voice overlapped. Not dispatch. A second officer. Calm. Too calm. Unit 14 is secure. Continue transport. My stomach tightened. Unit 14. That designation hadn't been used in years. Not since. The tape skipped. Hard. Like something inside it had been forced forward. Now there was screaming. Far away. Echoed. Like it was recorded in a room too big to exist. And underneath it, something else. Breathing. Close to the microphone. Not speaking. Just listening. Then a new voice came through. Soft. Familiar. Mine. But younger. Dispatch. I think I see headlights that aren't on the road. I stood up without realizing it. The chair scraped back hard enough to hurt my ears. That voice wasn't possible. I hadn't worked that case. I hadn't been on that shift. But I recognized the tone anyway. That version of me sounded uncertain. Still believing the world followed rules. The tape kept playing. Officer confirmed visual. My voice again. I can't tell if they're following me or waiting for me to stop. Static surged. Then something changed. The audio dropped in pitch for a second, like the entire tape had fallen deeper into itself. And when it stabilized, there were more voices, layered, too many, all speaking at once, all saying the same thing in different timing. Do not stop at mile marker 11. I felt my throat go dry, because I knew that line, not from memory, from something deeper, something like instinct. The tape didn't care that I was listening closely now. It kept going. A new transmission broke through. Another officer, older than the first voice, tired in a way that made my chest tighten. This unit reports visual distortion on Route 17. The road is repeating. I leaned closer to the speaker. The sound quality was getting worse, like the tape was being erased while I listened. Then something happened that made me freeze completely. The officer on tape stopped speaking and started reacting, like he had just realized something in real time. Wait, that's not. Static, then silence, then breathing, right against the microphone. Slow, patient, like someone had taken a headset, and was now listening back. And then, my voice again, but wrong this time. Not younger, not older, just present, like it was happening in the same room I was standing in. Archive log confirms unit disappearance at mile marker 11. I stepped back from the player. My foot hit the desk behind me. Hard, but I couldn't look away from the speaker, because now the tape was doing something it shouldn't. It was answering me. Every thought I had, it responded, like it already knew where I was going before I did. The next transmission came in softer, careful, almost gentle. Subject last confirmed alive at 3:11 a.m. I blinked. That time didn't belong to this case. Didn't belong to anything I remembered. But my body reacted to it anyway, like it meant something I had forgotten on purpose. The tape continued. Now the voices weren't separate anymore. They were merging, becoming one layered report. A final log being written in real time. Unit 14 ceased response after audio event. I shook my head. No! But the tape didn't stop. It kept building, like it was correcting me. Evidence recovered from transport unit indicates continued transmission post-impact. My hands started to shake, because I knew what that meant in police language. It meant someone was still speaking after they were gone. The tape hissed louder. Then, a pause. Long. Heavy. Like everything was waiting to see if I would keep listening. And then my own voice came back one last time. Clear. Close. Not through speakers anymore. Through the room. Don't archive this. I froze. Every muscle locked. The cassette player clicked. Once. Like it had finished. But the voice didn't stop. It repeated again. Closer. Don't archive this. I looked at the tape deck. The reels were still spinning. But there was no sound now. Just that voice in the room, not the machine. And I realized something I didn't want to understand. Archive tape 44B wasn't recording. It was still happening. The lights in my office flickered once. And in that half second of darkness, I thought I saw something reflected in the window. A patrol car, parked outside, engine running, headlights on, waiting, and inside it, a radio that wasn't off anymore. It started the next morning like nothing had happened. That was the worst part. The world still acted normal. Coffee still tasted like coffee. Radio still crackled with routine chatter. Paperwork still piled up like it always did. But I couldn't stop thinking about the words. Don't archive this. I hadn't slept after the tape. I just sat there, staring at the dark window where I thought I saw that patrol car. It was gone by sunrise. Or maybe it was never there. That's the thing about this job. You learn how easy it is for your eyes to lie when your mind is tired enough. But the radio room wasn't tired. It was busy. Too busy. I walked in just after 800 hours and noticed it immediately. The dispatcher on duty was relaxed like usual. She was sitting forward, head set tight, fingers frozen over the console like she was afraid to touch it. Morning. I said. She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me like she wasn't sure I belonged in the same building anymore. Then she said, "You were on night archive duty, right?" I nodded slowly. Her throat moved like she was swallowing something she didn't want to say. "Then you need to hear this." She turned the speaker up. At first, it sounded like normal traffic. Units checking in, road updates, a missing dog report. Then the first interruption came through. Not static. A voice. Female. Panicked. "Dispatch, do you copy? We're still at Pine Hollow Lake. Please respond." I frowned. Pine Hollow Lake. That name shouldn't have been active anymore. It wasn't on current maps. Hadn't been for years. The dispatcher looked at me. That lake doesn't exist anymore. I didn't answer, because I was already listening closer. The call kept going. We lost the trailhead road. It's gone. The water. Something is wrong with the water. Then silence. Then another voice cut in immediately. Same channel. Different caller. Same panic. Dispatch! This is Unit 7. We're at Red Creek Station. We're requesting immediate extraction. Something is moving under the ground. I felt my stomach tighten. Red Creek Station. That one was worse. That location had been wiped after the collapse. Officially closed. Unofficially never spoken about again. The dispatcher leaned in closer to the mic. Unit 7. Confirm coordinates. Static. Then a voice answered. Calm. Too calm. Coordinates are unchanged. Red Creek Station is active. I felt my skin go cold, because that voice didn't belong to any caller. It belonged to the system, the dispatch system itself. The room went quiet except for the speaker. The dispatcher whispered, "That's not possible." But the calls kept coming, one after another, all from erased locations. Black Ridge Tunnel, Old Route 9 cutoff, Hollow Bend Bridge, places that didn't exist on paper anymore, but were now fully operational on the radio. And every single call sounded like the people were still there, still alive, still reporting, but wrong, always wrong. One of them stuck in my head, a man's voice shaking. We can see the road again, but it's not where it used to be. Dispatch, we think it reset. The dispatcher looked at me again. This time, her eyes were different, not confused, afraid. "Did you do something to the archive tapes?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer, because I didn't know how, because the tape hadn't felt like something I controlled. It had felt like something that was already happening, and I was just late to it. The radio crackled again, and then my voice came through. I froze. So, did she? It wasn't the same tone as before. This one was procedural, clean, professional. Dispatch records indicate all locations are currently active. The dispatcher stood up so fast her chair hit the wall. "That's not our voice," she said. But the speaker didn't stop. My voice continued. "Active zones confirmed. Pine Hollow Lake, Red Creek Station, mile marker 11 corridor." I felt my throat tighten at that last one, because I hadn't said that name out loud since yesterday. The dispatcher looked at me like I was part of the transmission. "Why is it using your voice?" I didn't have an answer, but the radio did. Operator signature mismatch detected. Synchronization required. The lights in the room flickered once. Just once. But it was enough, because when they came back, every radio in the room was on. All of them. Even the ones that should have been off. Even the old analog unit in the corner that hadn't worked in years. And every single one was repeating the same thing. Active zones confirmed. Like the building itself had joined the report. The dispatcher backed away slowly. "Turn it off." I moved toward the main console. But before I could touch it, the speaker shifted again. This time, a different voice came through. Not mine. Not dispatch. Something in between. "You're receiving outdated map data." I stopped. Outdated. That word didn't belong in emergency traffic. The voice continued. "Erase history to restore function." The dispatcher whispered, "What does that mean?" I wished I knew, but deep down, something in me already did, because I remember the tape. Archive tape 44B. Don't archive this. That wasn't a warning. It was resistance. The radio suddenly spiked in volume. All channels at once. All the erased places speaking together. "We are still here. We are still here. We are still here." The dispatcher covered her ears. "Shut it down." I reached for the main breaker, but then my voice came back one last time. Soft, almost personal. "Stop attempting disconnection." I froze, because it wasn't just speaking. It was observing. The room temperature dropped slightly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But I did, because it felt like something had just stepped closer. The dispatcher grabbed my arm. "We need to evacuate the building." But I couldn't move, because the radio wasn't just broadcasting anymore. It was naming things. Things I hadn't told anyone. Things I had only thought. Operator previously assigned to mile marker 11 transport. My breath caught. That assignment did not terminate correctly. The dispatcher looked at me sharply. What assignment? I didn't answer. Because I couldn't. Because I was starting to understand something I didn't want to be true. The system wasn't just replaying old calls. It was updating them. In real time. Based on me. The radio continued. Correction. Unit 14 is currently active with an archive layer. My hand started shaking. Archive layer. That wasn't a real term. At least not one I remembered. But the word felt familiar in a way that made my chest hurt. The dispatcher grabbed the mic. Who is this? Identify yourself. A pause. Then my voice answered again. Calm. Final. Dispatcher identity confirmed. She went silent instantly, because that wasn't a question she had asked. That was something the system had already decided. The lights flickered again, and this time when they stabilized, every screen in the room showed the same thing. A map, but not ours. Older, worn, faded lines over places that shouldn't exist anymore. And every erased location was marked in red. Active. The dispatcher whispered, "This isn't real." But I couldn't stop staring at mile marker 11, because it wasn't just on the map. It was pulsing, like something breathing under it. The radio spoke one last time. Quiet. Close. All active zones require confirmation. Then it paused, long enough for my stomach to drop, and finished with something I'll never forget. Confirm operator presence. The dispatcher looked at me, not at the radio, at me, and for the first time since it started, I wasn't sure if she was asking me, or checking if I was still real enough to answer. It started at 11:58 p.m., and I remember because I was staring at the clock like it owed me answers. 2 minutes before midnight. The radio on my dashboard was already too quiet. Not normal quiet. The kind that feels like the whole world is holding its breath just to see what you'll do next. Then dispatch came in, sharp and tired. Unit 7, last patrol check before midnight rotation. Confirm status. I pressed the mic, but my finger hesitated. Something felt wrong about answering. Still I did. Unit 7. All clear. Mile grid is empty as usual. A pause. Too long. Then dispatch said something I still can't explain without feeling my throat tighten. Copy. And if you hear any older channels activate, do not respond. Repeat. Do not respond after midnight. I frowned. Older channels? I asked. No answer came back. Just static. And behind the static, something else. Like breathing that didn't belong on a radio frequency. I almost laughed it off. Almost. But then I remembered the tapes. Archive tape 44B. The ones I wasn't supposed to listen to twice. Because every officer who did stopped filing reports within a week. I told myself it was coincidence. That's what I told myself. Until the radio clicked again. Not dispatch this time. Not my channel. An older frequency. One that shouldn't have been active in this decade. And it said my name. Slow. Clear. Like it had been waiting for me to answer. Unit 7, you're late. My hand froze on the wheel. The desert highway stretched ahead, black and endless. Mile marker 11 sat behind me now, swallowed by darkness like it never existed at all. I checked my rearview mirror. Nothing. Just road. Just heat distortion from a world that felt too empty to be real. But the radio spoke again. Turn around. That's when I noticed something behind me. Headlights. Not mine. They were far back, hovering in the dark like two pale eyes that refused to blink. I slowed down. They slowed too. I stopped. They stopped. And for a moment, the world felt like it was copying me. Like I wasn't leading anything anymore. I was being followed by a version of myself I couldn't see. I picked up the mic. Dispatch. I've got a vehicle behind me. No plates visible. Request ID check. Static answered first. Then something worse. A voice that sounded like mine. Calm. Too calm. Unit 7. No other units are in your sector. I went cold because I hadn't spoken yet. Not out loud. The headlights behind me flickered once, then disappeared. Just like that. No dust trail. No engine sound fading into distance. Gone. Like they were never there. I told myself I imagined it. Fatigue. Long shift. Desert tricks your eyes. But then the radio changed again. New channel, older than the last one. And this time it didn't say my name. It said what I was going to become. Do not proceed past mile marker 11. Previous units did not return. I felt my grip tighten. Previous units. That wasn't in any briefing. Not in any file I had ever seen. I drove anyway, because that's what we do. We always drive anyway. The road ahead began to shift after midnight hit. Not visually at first. Not in a way I could point to and prove. But the silence changed. It got heavier. Like something was pressing down on the windshield from the other side of the world. Then I saw the first marker. A rusted patrol sign half buried in sand. It had names carved into it. Officer names. Too many. Too old. And one of them matched my handwriting. That's when I stopped pretending this was normal. The radio cracked again. This time it wasn't a voice. It was multiple. Overlapping. Whispering through each other like drowning men trying to speak at once. Do not respond after midnight. Do not answer your own voice. Do not return to dispatch. And then, a sound like something dragging itself across asphalt. Slow. Close. Behind me, I looked in the mirror again. Nothing, but the sound didn't stop. It got closer, like it didn't need to be seen to be real. I stepped out of the car. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I could break the pattern by breaking myself out of it. The desert air hit like a dry warning. No wind, no movement, just that dragging sound continuing somewhere behind me, circling like it was deciding whether I was ready yet. I walked toward the back of the vehicle. Nothing there, just my patrol unit, just darkness. But then I noticed something on the ground. Boot prints, fresh, coming from nowhere, walking in a circle around my car. Perfect spacing, perfect rhythm. Like someone had been pacing around me while I was driving, watching, waiting. I followed them with my eyes. They led straight into the road and stopped right where mile marker 11 should have been. But the marker wasn't there anymore. Instead, there was a hole in the ground, not deep like a crack, deep like the earth had forgotten how to end. The radio exploded with sound, not static this time. Screaming, hundreds of voices layered into one broken signal. And beneath it all, one calm voice cut through. Mine, reading coordinates. My own voice calmly giving directions to a place I had never been trained to find. Proceed into basin. Unit 7 arriving. I stepped back. No, I whispered. That's not me. But the radio answered anyway. Yes, it is. The headlights returned behind me. Closer this time. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because I realized something important. Every time I looked away, they got closer. The desert around me began to feel wrong in its emptiness, like it wasn't empty at all. Like something underneath it was waiting to surface. I walked back to the car and grabbed the logbook. The pages were already filled in. My handwriting. Pages I hadn't written. Reports of patrols I never took. Locations I had never driven through. And every report ended the same way. Officer did not return after midnight. The radio clicked again. Final transmission. Clear. Close. Almost gentle. Unit 7, you are the last active entry. I froze. That word hit harder than anything else. Last. Not first. Not alone. Last. I looked at the road one more time. The whole of the earth was still there. Still waiting. And now I understood something I didn't want to understand. The calls were never random. The coordinates were never broken. They were invitations. And every officer who responded became part of the system that kept answering. The headlights appeared again behind me. This time, I didn't check the mirror. I already knew. They weren't following me anymore. They were lining up behind me, like a convoy, like I was already one of them. The radio whispered one final thing before everything went silent. Do not respond after midnight. And I realized it wasn't a warning. It was a rule you only hear once you've already broken it. The moment I stepped toward the basin, the world didn't end. It corrected itself, like I was always supposed to be there. And the last thing I remember clearly is not falling, not running, not even fear. It was my own voice on the radio, answering someone else, from a unit I had never seen. saying I was fine, saying I was en route, saying I was almost home. But there is no home on mile marker 11, not anymore. And if you ever hear your own voice come through dispatch after midnight, don't respond, because by then, it's already learned how to sound like you.